25, Madam Speaker did inform the House that as part of the ongoing constitutional reform process, the National Assembly of Zambia, through the Institute for Parliamentary Studies and Training, had organized a one-day awareness raising and capacity building workshop for parliamentarians. She did state that the purpose of the workshop was to enhance members' understanding of the proposed amendments to the Constitution. And just to give you some background, the Minister of Justice, Honorable Princess Kasune, sometime in March did present a ministerial statement on the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Bill, and that was presented on the 26th of March, which had some number of clauses that have been proposed, some of which include Constitution. We have Madam Speaker making her way into the auditorium, and we expect her to be part of this program. Already we have the Minister of Justice, who is already seated. And any time from now, the official opening of the consultative workshop will be done, and from there we do expect some presentations that will be presented by various stakeholders, and this workshop is also being done in collaboration with the Ministry of Justice, and there are other stakeholders at hand that will be providing some training to the members of Parliament.
Victors in the struggle for the right, we want freedom's fight, oh, one, strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, fashioned with and blessed by God's good hands. Let us all our people join as one, brothers under the sun, oh, one, strong and free. One land and one nation is our cry. Dignity and peace needs Zambia's sky. Like a noble eagle in its flight, Zambia, raise to thee, oh, one, strong and free. Ready to praise thee, praise thee, praise thee. Let us make Zambia, 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 remain we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, raise to thee, oh, one, strong and free.
We have a prayer by Honorable Andelegi.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father above in heaven, we want to thank you, King of Kings, this morning. Thank you for the gift of life, and thank you for gathering us in this manner. We want to ask your presence, Heavenly Father, this morning, as we are going to deliberate on national matters. King of Kings, King of Glory, we want to ask for your presence. We have a country to govern, Heavenly Father. We ask you this day that you be with us in all the deliberations, Heavenly Father. You know the task that we have ahead of us is a task that comes from you, Heavenly Father. When you created man, you also created that man shall preside and have dominion over everything on earth. We ask you that as we deliberate this morning and this afternoon, Heavenly Father, give us wisdom, help our country, Heavenly Father, to remain a peaceful and a good country as we inherited it from yourself, Heavenly Father. We seek your presence during these difficult times as the country is mourning, Heavenly Father. We ask your presence. We ask that brotherhood and sisterhood and fraternity exist in this country. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for all the privileges you continue to bestow upon our leadership in the Republic of Zambia and all the citizens of this country. As we deliberate this day, Heavenly Father, we seek your wisdom. May you be with us. We thank you this day, Heavenly Father. Continue to be a blessing on the land of Zambia. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We may be seated. Allow me to recognize the presence of the Right Honorable Ms. Nelly Utete Kashumba Muti, State Council MP, Fellow of the African Public Relations Association, FAPRA, Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, the Honorable Malungo H. Sangano, MP, First Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Moses F. Moyo, MP, Second Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Princess Kasune, MP, Minister of Justice, and other Cabinet Ministers present, Honorable Provincial Ministers present, Honorable Members of Parliament, the Permanent Secretaries present. May I also recognize the Deputy Clerk Corporate Affairs, Mrs. Cecilia Sikatele Mambwe, the Deputy Clerk Procedure, Mr. Stephen Kawimbe, the Acting Deputy Clerk Administration, Mr. Sech Samuwika, Mr. Brown Kasaro, the Chief Electoral Officer of the Electoral Commission of Zambia, Mr. Kurasha Shaonen, I'm confident I've gotten the pronunciation right, Program Manager, Democracy and Human Rights at the SADC Parliamentary Forum, Dr. Victor Schule, Elections and Governance Expert, invited cooperating partners, distinguished resource persons, staff of the National Assembly of Zambia and the Ministry of Justice, colleagues from the press, simply distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Welcome to the consultative workshop for parliamentarians on the 2025 constitutional reform process. It is now my rare honor and privilege to call upon the Deputy Clerk Corporate Affairs, Mrs. Cecilia Sikatele Mambwe, to come and deliver the welcoming remarks. Madam.
Good morning, everyone. The Right Honorable Ms. Nelly B.K. Muti, State Council, FAPRA, Member of Parliament and Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Malungo H. Sangano, MP, First Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Moses F. Moyo, MP, Second Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Princess Kasune, Minister of Justice, and other cabinet ministers present. I see we have the number. Provincial ministers present, members of parliament. I see we don't have many, but I know that we shall be joined by more. Mr. Patrick Kangwa, Secretary to the Cabinet, Mr. Mulilo Kabisha, Attorney General of the Republic of Zambia, Permanent Secretaries present, Deputy Clerks of the National Assembly, cooperating partners present, staff of the National Assembly and the Ministry of Justice, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning once again. On behalf of the Honorable Madam Speaker and on my own behalf, I welcome you all to this important awareness raising and capacity building workshop. this workshop has been planned for members of Parliament. And this is in view of the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Bill. I'm sure all of us in here are aware that the government has gazetted what we are calling Bill number 7 of 2025. That speaks to the amendments that the government wishes to enact to our Constitution. So this workshop is very, very important to you, the members of Parliament, because the Constitution is a document for the nation, for every Zambian. And ideally, we would all be here to speak for ourselves. But the millions of Zambians elected you, the members of Parliament, to speak on their behalf in the House. And in order for the members of Parliament to effectively speak on behalf of the millions of Zambians on a very important document, you must undertake that function from an informed position, and hence the importance of this workshop. One, it is an awareness-raising workshop. Why? Well, we are aware, I think we've been hearing that there's the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Bill. I wonder how many of the members of Parliament, even staff, that have taken time to actually look at the content of that bill. So we know that most of us have not actually read through that content of Bill 7. So this workshop will help those of us that have not seen the content of Bill 7. Will help us to know what is contained in Bill 7. Some of us have even started already even spreading what is not in Bill 7, because we've heard somebody has said there's this, and we spread just like that, without actually taking a step to actually read for ourselves. So it is an awareness raising workshop in the sense that it will tell us exactly what is contained in Bill number 7. And then secondly, it's a capacity building workshop. Capacity building in the sense that, yes, we have heard there are certain terms in Bill 7. Bill 7 speaks to delimitation. Bill 7 speaks to proportional representation. Now, I think I must also admit that I haven't gone through Bill 7, so even as I say proportional representation, I hope that it is there. But assuming it is not there, I know that it speaks to delimitation. So most of us, what again we are taking around in terms of raising awareness, we are basically picking what we are hearing another person saying about delimitation or proportional representation. And our knowledge may be inadequate, or for a lack of a better term, shallow. So when we hear these terms, for us, some of us will conclude some of these terms are actually not good for us. Why? Because we don't have adequate information, or information, what we know about some of these terms is actually shallow. So this workshop will help us to actually understand, get to know what some of those, some of the issues, some of the matters that are covered under Bill 7, what do they mean, and what do they entail? Even when you talk about delimitation, for example, for some of us, all we know is that you just split the constituencies in two. Is it 2 or 3 or whatever? But we don't even know, perhaps, what is it that must be taken into account in coming up with that splitting. So that when one constituency is split and the other one is not split, we will be able to understand why that has happened. So you appreciate, honorable members, that this is a very important workshop, and would urge all the members to be present and just stay throughout this workshop. And to help us understand Bill 7, we have invited resource persons, experts from other jurisdictions. So we just don't have resource persons from within Zambia, but we have resource persons from other jurisdictions. So we have Mr. Shauneni Kurasha from the SADC-PF, and we also have another consultant, Mr. Victor Shari from South Africa. So please let us engage actively with our consultants so that we can learn, because that's the whole idea of this workshop. It is there for us to learn. It is not my intention to give a long speech. My role this morning is simply to welcome you all to this very important workshop and to encourage you to actively participate, be open, ask the questions that you've been, you've been looking forward to ask, because as members of Parliament I know that this topic has been discussed out there and we have a lot of questions, and I say, as I've already mentioned, some of these questions that we have, or some of the questions that people have out there, they're actually questions perhaps that are coming from a position where these people or ourselves are not well informed. So this is an opportunity for us to learn, so that when the enactment process begins in the National Assembly, we will be able to represent our constituents in the manner that we should represent them. So with those few remarks, I wish to welcome you all to this important workshop. I thank you.
Indeed, thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. It is another honor and privilege to call upon the Minister of Justice. This is no other than Honorable Princess Kasume MP. A round of applause for her.
My honorable members. Hey, your very own is back, Kai. Africa I'm very about Tandara. Although Madam Clerk, I was looking at the program, lunch is in Naione. It's called lunch on the Right Honorable herself, Madam Speaker. We are used, Madam. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's good to see all of you. I know it's cold, so for you to have made it out, it really means a lot. And also to see my few colleagues. I don't know where the whips are. This is where I miss being a whip now. If my husband in Bangweta could make it, all the way from Nkema, how much more those who are near? Madam Speaker, I think those who haven't come, we need to find a way to make sure they pay for this or something. Otherwise, I'm very excited to be here. May I take cognizance of the Right Honorable Madam Speaker, Honorable Nelly B.K. Muti, State Council, MP, FAPRA, and Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, and also our very own First Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Malungo Chisangano, too close of a comma, and our very own Second Deputy Speaker. This is no other than Honorable F. Moyo Moses. We are grateful, sir, that you are here as well. And of course, we are grateful to all the cabinet ministers that are here, Honorable Mtati and Lufuma, my honey there, and all others that are here. Yeah, I'm a woman of so many men, so it's not a secret by now. And all the provincial ministers have already talked about my other sweetheart, Honorable Bangweta. And indeed to you, my fellow colleagues. For me, I've spoken a lot in different events, but there was nothing like coming home. I was so excited. I was waking up with some bubbles in my tummy. You can be so excited and so open when you're somewhere else, but there's nothing like being critiqued by all colleagues and just the camaraderie and the joy. So I was really looking forward, and that tells you how much important you are to me and to the process. Indeed, also we have the permanent secretaries. I haven't seen, I think I've seen one, but maybe others are still coming. But also we have our Chief Electoral Officer from Election Commission of Zambia. So it's good to have you, Mr. Brian Kasaro. And then we also have Mr. Kurasha. He is from SADC PF, who will be speaking to us, I believe, at some point. I was looking at the schedule there. And also there is Dr. Victor Shule, also who's coming from Elections and Governance expert, who is an election governance expert. We believe that they will be speaking to us. And indeed, to the members of staff, good morning. You make this room full, so you have done the speaker proud. And as always, it's good to see you. I miss a lot of you from the committees that we have been working together for almost 10 years now. And indeed, just to all our partners, I may not have said your name. Oh, there is another last born of the cabinet, Honorable Sialumalo. He has made my job easy because he said, the president is saying he wants more youth. I say youth come in different sizes. So he's the new youth on the block from Bamavenga. That's the Zambia we have at the current moment, and hence the amendments. All of you, the invited cooperating partners, you are so critical to this process. And may I just say, indeed, everyone that has found yourself here, if we didn't mention you, it's not because you're not important. As you know, this is a national endeavor, and that means your voice matters. We cannot forget you, the media, because if we only kept to ourselves in here, Madam Speaker, as you know, it will remain just for these four walls. But our hope is that even what is happening here will find itself in the public, so that people can see that we are thriving or striving to ensure that the dialogue, the discourse, and indeed the sensitization, as Madam Clerk talked about it, is continuing. So ladies and gentlemen, and indeed to you, my colleagues, I am just humbled and appreciative to be here. And of course my justice team, I'm sure we will introduce them when we come to present, but they're right here, amazing, amazing experts that we have in our midst as well. And the lady who is usually behind the drafting. So I think it would be nice for people to see you. They don't know you, and my sister here, so that they see people who draft the bills. Because we always see Dinkamisha, but actually doesn't draft them. There are people who draft them. To you, Madam Speaker, and indeed other speakers and my fellow colleagues, honorable members, I am deeply honored to be here today, as I've already alluded to, because of the importance and indeed these momentous legislative reforms in this country, our beautiful country called the Republic of Zambia, that we have to all continue to cherish and to continue growing in the area of governance. As you may recall, I issued a ministerial statement on the floor of the House on the 26th of March 2025. In the ministerial statement, I outlined the 13 thematic areas that were being proposed as to be amended in the Constitution of Zambia. These included, just a few to mention, the revision of the nomination procedures. We had a lot of conversation around that, and we'll be highlighting some of that in the presentation, my team from Ministry of Justice. The enhancing electoral inclusivity and revising the constitutional boundaries. I think this has become where a lot of our conversation has now ended, is how many, okay, we know it's 55, but where? What about me? People are coming to me like I have all the powers to say, please make sure my constituency is there. So, in case you need your constituency delimited, please, you know my phone number, you can send your money, then I can look into it. I think I should make money at this point, but really that is the preserve of ECZ. Following that ministerial statement, I am pleased to inform you that on the 3rd of May 2025, the draft Constitution Amendment Bill, which we have come to know as number 7 of 2025, was published. And this means that we are actually still within the 30 days that are required for a bill to be published. So this happened on the 23rd of May, as already alluded to, and indeed the 13 areas that are proposed for amendment are already in there, and as the clerk has reminded us, I hope we have been familiarizing ourselves. Tim, I believe we have brought copies, okay? First of all, the ones that we had just done the provisions, and now the actual gazetted text. It's very important, members, and all of you that are here, that we interrogate it together and maybe go out and share with others. Nothing which is not in there is there or will be there, unless maybe through the amendment of the selected committee. To be specific, the objective of the constitutional amendments is to, among others, revise the composition of the National Assembly to provide for an increment from the current 156 to 211, okay? And that gives us the 55 constituencies that have been proposed. And this is what we all know as the delimitation, and the report is, as I've already spoken to it, is a preserve of the Electoral Commission. Revise the provision relating to filing of fresh nominations on the resignation of a candidate. Again, we have had a lot of conversation around this. As we dive in this morning, that will also be highlighted more into details, the issue of how do we cure by-elections, and indeed how do we achieve the social contract that you members of parliament have with the public, which is about 5 years. Because currently we only go, I should add myself, to 4 years and 9 months. And we will also share what some of the feedbacks has been from the people. Madam Speaker, and indeed to you, my fellow colleagues and all invited guests, as you are aware, the Minister of Justice has been going around, indeed really just to add on. It's not to start from the scratch, because one of the premise that we as the executive have come to this conclusion on the 13 thematic areas is because of the many constitutional reviews that have happened over the years. So it's not from without, it is from that premise. But we still felt that as Minister of Justice, how about we take it outside Lusaka? Because sometimes the conversations around Lusaka, and hear from the key stakeholders, these were the chiefs. In Choma, we even had headmen, which we have never had in some of these provinces. And we also had CSOs, we had people living with disability, student bodies, and indeed the marketeers everywhere we went. Association, bus and taxis were always there. And indeed we heard from other ordinary people, the men and women of the cloth, that is the clergies. They all came out in numbers. And as we stand today, we have been to, 7 provinces, remaining with Western and Lusaka. So maybe it's 8 about? Copper Belt we have been, except we didn't talk to the chiefs. So it brings us to 7 if you don't add the Copper Belt without the chiefs. If you add where we have been to all the 8 provinces, and we remain only with 2, that is Northwestern and part of Lusaka. As it is essential, of course, to bring this important dialogue back to all of you here at the National Assembly, because as you have heard or maybe are aware, this is going to take a legislative process which is anchored around Article 79 of the Constitution of Zambia, which gives permission to Parliament, through you, the members of Parliament, to alter the bill, or the Constitution, or amend. But there are some safeguards there. What are those safeguards? One, that the 30-day gazette happens, and secondly, that you, the members, ultimately, you are the one to make it go through or not to go through, because there will be need of the 2/3 majority. And that is why, at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, as the Americans would say. Well, we have a guest speaker today, and for us as your ministry, we'll be diving into more details. Therefore, this gathering is designed to ensure that we all have the questions that we want to ask. There is no small question, silly question. They are just as important, because your voice matters, that we interrogate the content of the bill together, and we acknowledge where I think we are being progressive, but also how can we make it better. In concluding, I hope that this meeting will be very informative, very engaging, and indeed it will clarify some of the grey areas that we may have. And believe you me, even us, we have been challenged, we have been expanded, and that is how we should be, because at the end of the day, a constitution amendment process is for the people, and you are the people, and not for this generation, but for many generations to come. On that note, I look forward to the interventions and indeed the conversation. I thank you.
Another round of applause for the Honorable Minister. I'll invite my colleagues from the press to move the microphones to the main table there. Thank you very much. It is now this one is very extremely rare honor and privilege to call upon the Right Honorable Madam Speaker to give her keynote address. A big hand for the Right Honorable Madam Speaker.
We can take our seats. Good morning. Honorable Malungo Chisangano, MP, First Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia. Honorable Moses F. Moyo, MP, Second Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia. Honorable Princess Kasune, Minister of Justice, and the other cabinet ministers present. Provincial ministers present. Members of Parliament present. Permanent secretaries present. Deputy clerks of the National Assembly present. Invited cooperating partners. Distinguished resource persons. Staff of the National Assembly and Ministry of Justice. Members of the press. Distinguished invited guests. Ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Minister was talking about lunch when she started her presentation. This program is for the whole day. On my program there is some lunch, so lunch will be provided. I'm sure with the courtesy of yours truly, so we'll have some lunch. And then when the Honorable Minister of Justice was talking about a woman of many husbands, I was reminded of her presentation in Parliament when she was challenging all the elderly men why they are going for the young children. And in her own way she said, we the elder ones are here, what are you scared of? So we the elder ones are here, what are you scared of? What are you looking? Thank you very much. Good morning again. It is with great honor and a sense of shared purpose that we gather here today to deepen our collective understanding of the proposed constitutional amendments that the executive will soon present before the House. Honorable members, distinguished resource persons, permit me to state that Parliament has made immense contributions to Zambia's democracy and development. For decades since our independence, this institution has been the architect of our country's laws, consistently propelling the strides we have achieved over time. It is through this legislative and oversight function that Parliament intersects with Executive's vision for law reform. Article 62(2) of the Constitution unequivocally affirms that the legislative authority of the Republic resides in the Parliament of Zambia, highlighting the essential connection embedded within Parliament's very structure. Article 62(1) clearly states that Parliament comprises the President and the National Assembly, consisting of 167 members of Parliament, including the Speaker, the Vice President, and the First Deputy Speaker. The structures provide a strong link between Parliament and the Executive, especially concerning our legislative and oversight functions. Honorable members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished resource persons, as you already know, the Constitution is the supreme law. The Constitution is the supreme law that defines our government, distributes power, and guarantees individual rights and liberties. Therefore, crafting or amending it requires a process that is credible, inclusive, and participatory. Such a process does not just underpin democratic governance, but also builds a durable constitutional order that champions peace, social justice, and national development. I am therefore very delighted that Parliament is once again at the center of this pivotal chapter in our constitutional history. The proposed amendments to be introduced through the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Bill Act number 7 of 2025 by the Honorable Minister of Justice marks our 8th constitutional reform process in 5 decades. I have every confidence that honorable members will rise to this occasion in the interest of the country and citizens. On behalf of the Zambian people, you are expected to refine our supreme law, aligning it with our national values and principles as outlined in Article 8 of our Constitution, which are morality and ethics, patriotism and national unity, democracy and constitutionalism, human dignity, equity, social justice, equality and non-discrimination, good governance and integrity, and sustainable development. In view of the foregoing, I wish to reiterate that Article 9 of the Constitution directs the legislature, executive, and judiciary to apply these principles when interpreting the Constitution, enacting and interpreting laws, and shaping state policy. Honorable members, distinguished resource persons, as representatives of the people and custodians of national interest, your deep understanding of the legal, political, and social implications of the proposed constitutional amendments is critical. This understanding empowers effective legislative oversight, meaningful stakeholder engagement, and consensus building. Let me just give an example, just a simple example of amendment of Article 153, which relates to the term of office of members of Parliament. What is the mischief that we are trying to cure there? The mischief is that we need, first of all, to ensure that there is no conflicting provisions in the Constitution, where the term of office in one paragraph it says 5 years, in the other is only 4 years and 9 months. Now, we are trying to cure that vacuum. We don't want to have a vacuum in the Constitution. So for you to be able to interrogate this amendment, you need to understand what is the mischief that we are trying to cure. We don't want to leave a vacuum. Now, the amendment as proposed, is it curing that vacuum? That is a question that you need to examine, whether this amendment is indeed curing that vacuum. So I will not provide the answer. I will leave that to you, honorable members, to interrogate and see how best we can get rid of that vacuum. Honorable members, distinguished resource persons, as representatives of the people, suffice to mention that successful constitutional reform hinges on informed and engaged lawmakers. We recognize that a knowledge and capacity gap can sometimes exist regarding our constitutional history, the technical details of proposed amendments, and best practice for participatory design. This workshop is therefore designed to bridge that gap, fostering an informed debate, promoting consensus, and protecting the integrity of this vital process. Honorable members, distinguished resource persons, based on the workshop objectives which focus on enhancing your knowledge of Zambia's constitutional history and principles, deepening your understanding of the legal and procedural framework, and providing technical insight into non-contentious amendments, I am confident that upon completion, you will gain a greater appreciation of our evolving constitutional framework and the necessary reforms required to refine it. It is my sincere hope that the workshop will significantly increase your capacity to meaningfully and effectively engage with the constitutional amendment process. Ultimately, I expect this interaction to lead to enhanced stakeholder engagement and greater transparency throughout our entire constitutional reform process. With these remarks, it is now my singular honor and privilege to declare this awareness and capacity building workshop officially opened. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think the Right Honorable Madam Speaker deserves another resounding applause. We shall now proceed for the group photograph in front of the main building, and thereafter there will be tea break. We'll have some
Tea break for a minute, but let's just do the way.
The Right Honorable Madam Speaker has guided that we go immediately to the wake.
Yes.
So now group photograph will be taken later, tea break will also be taken later. Therefore, we invite the Right Honorable Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Justice, the clerk to come to the front bench. We have some lost and found keys.
Good morning, and thank you for still being with us on Parliament Television. That was the opening session of the consultative workshop for parliamentarians on the 2025 constitutional reform process that has just been done. And earlier on we had our Honorable Madam Speaker who highlighted the importance of this consultative meeting. She emphasized that Parliament's role in democracy is very important. That includes the constitutional amendment process and the need to align the supreme law with national values and principles. She also stated that there is need for importance of informed and engaged lawmakers for successful constitutional reform, aiming to bridge knowledge gaps and promote participatory processes through the workshop. And earlier on, we also had the Minister of Justice. She did discuss some of the proposed constitutional amendments, highlighting key areas such as delimitation, nomination, procedures, and electoral integrity.
The second deputy speaker, and allow me to write in the protocols already established. I will run you through, I will be your moderator during the presentations. As has been mentioned, my name is Ifoma Mulewa. I work in the Institute for Parliamentary Studies and Training, which has a sole purpose of capacity building. So with this, we hope that as we sit in here, as the day ends, our capacity shall be built, as our leaders had mentioned. But to start the whole program, we're going to have Madam Bubala Chibonta from Ministry of Justice. She is the Chief Parliamentary Counsel there. I think the Ministry of Justice had spoken about her. Her credentials speak that she's been at the bar for over 19 years. So it speaks volumes as she comes to the front to actually give us this particular presentation. Madam Bubala, you're very welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bubala Jibonta. I am the Chief Parliamentary Counsel from the Ministry of Justice. I'm in charge of drafting legislation. So the legislation that you see before Parliament, this is the face. Before I proceed with my presentation, I recognize the presence of the Speaker, the Deputy Speakers, Cabinet Ministers, Provincial Ministers, Members of Parliament, the Deputy Clerks of the National Assembly. May I simply say, all protocols observed. My role this morning is to take you through information on the contents of the Constitutional Amendment Bill. I hope we all have the bill. Do we have the bill, please? Okay, so let's open to Article 47. Article 47, please. I will take you through step by step so that we understand. So Article 47. This is the first article we are proposing to amend. So when you look at that particular article, we are trying to maintain the first past the post electoral system for election of members of Parliament who shall represent constituencies, and we are also introducing a proportional representation electoral system for election of women, youths, and persons with disabilities as members of Parliament without constituencies. So when you look at this particular provision, what we're trying to do there also
is to provide for a system on how the seats will be distributed under the proportional representation electoral system after elections by the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ. So I hope we understand what this particular provision is all about. We're introducing two systems, first past the post, which is currently existing, and we're introducing the proportional representation electoral system for election of women, youths, and persons with disability. So the next time a citizen asks you, what is Article 47 trying to do, the proposed amendment, this is what we're trying to do as the Ministry of Justice. We'll move on to the next article. Please move to Article 51. For Article 51, we are trying to clarify that a person shall be eligible for election as an independent candidate if the person is not a member of a political party and has not been a member of a political party for at least 2 months immediately before the date for nominations and not the date of the election. Currently, if you look at this particular provision, Article 51, it makes mention of the word date of election. It should read date for nominations. The next article, Article 52. Are we on Article 52, please? Yes. Article 52. Oh, I'm too fast. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Are we together? Article 52. I'll be slow. 51, I go back to 51? Okay. So for 51, what we're trying to clarify is that a person shall be eligible for election as an independent candidate if the person is not a member of a political party and has not been a member of a political party for at least 2 months immediately before the date for nominations and not the date of the election. So if you look at the current provision in the Constitution under Article 51, it's making a reference to the date of election, but we are trying to clean it up and refer to the date for nominations. Is it okay? Am I slow enough this time around? Okay. We move to Article 52. Article 52, are we there? Article 52? Okay. So in clause 1, when you look at this particular article, we are trying to clarify that only a candidate who intends to contest an election for the office of president, member of parliament representing a constituency, mayor, council chairperson, or councillor shall file that candidate's nomination paper supported by an affidavit to a returning officer. That is under clause 1. In clause 4, we are clarifying that a court or tribunal is required to hear and determine a matter brought by a person who challenges the nomination of a candidate within 7 days of the close of nomination. That is what we're trying to do. Article 52, clause 4. Are we okay? I can proceed? Article 52.6. In Article 52.6, 52 clause 6, in particular, when you look at A, paragraph A, we are prohibiting a candidate who resigns after having been nominated to contest an election from participating in that election and to provide that an election shall proceed to be held where a candidate resigns. Are we okay? We understand the prohibition? Okay. We move on. Still under the same article, but in clause 6b. What we're trying to do in clause 6b, we are prohibiting a candidate who has been disqualified by a court after nominations are closed from participating in that election and to provide that an election shall proceed to be held where a candidate is disqualified by a court. Okay? Still under Article 52,
in particular clause 6C, we are providing for the cancellation of an election by the ECZ where a candidate dies before the date of an election, and for the ECZ to require the filing of fresh nominations and the election to be held within 30 days of receiving the fresh nominations. It's clear? We can move on to the next article. Okay. We are amending Article 57. Are we there, Article 57? Okay. For Article 57, we are limiting the holding of by-elections to where a vacancy occurs in the office of an independent member of parliament representing a constituency, independent mayor, council chairperson, or councillor. You've seen the limit, the limitation. Can I finish the presentation? I can. I know I've seen a lot of hands going up already. Okay? Okay, I'll move on to Article 58. What are we trying to do in Article 58? We are clarifying that the number of constituencies shall be equal to the number of constituency-based seats in the National Assembly which are specified in Article 68A. You will notice that when we get to Article 68, we have split Article 68 from what is currently existing on the statute book to provide for first past the post and the other system that will now represent women, youth, and persons with disability. So Article 68. 68, what are we trying to do? We're trying to implement delimitation of constituencies by increasing the constituency-based seats from 156 to 211 and to include 20 women, 12 youths, and 3 persons with disabilities in Parliament who are to be voted for under the proportional representation electoral system. I know you are reading through the provision. I can proceed? Thank you. Article 71. What are we trying to do in Article 71? We are trying to clarify that the nomination for election to the National Assembly shall be valid if a candidate contesting for constituency-based seats is supported by at least 15 persons registered as voters. Okay? We proceed to Article 72. In Article 72, in particular Clause 2H, what we're trying to do here is to expand the scope of when a seat of a member of parliament falls vacant to include a member of parliament who is disqualified under any provision in the Constitution. Still under Article 72, in Clause 8, we are trying to provide that where a vacancy occurs in the National Assembly for a member of parliament, the political party that sponsored the member who held the seat shall elect another person to replace that member. We will open it up for discussion. There will be a panel discussion where we will now provide the rationale. Under Article 72, still under Article 72, what we are trying to do again in Article 72, we are inserting clauses 9, 10, 11, and 12, which will provide for, among others, that a person who replaces a member of parliament under Clause 8 shall serve for the unexpired term of parliament and shall meet the requirements specified under Article 70 of the Constitution. This is the amendment in Article 72. Are we clear? Thank you. We move on to Article 73. In
Article 73, we are clarifying that a constitutional court is required to hear and determine an election petition of a member of parliament within 90 days of the filing of the petition. We move to Article 81. In 81, we are trying to ensure that the term of parliament is harmonized to achieve a 5-year term, commencing from the date of the first sitting of parliament after a general election and ending a day preceding the date of the next general election. Okay. The next article, please, let's move to Article 103. Are we there? 103. In 103, we are clarifying that the Constitutional Court is required to hear and determine an election petition of a president-elect within 14 days of the filing of the petition. So it's just an issue relating to hear and determine. You must conclude within the 14 days of the filing of the petition. We are also amending Articles 116 and Articles 117 so as to provide that the office of a minister and provincial minister shall be vacant 90 days before a general election. 90 days before a general election, all provincial ministers or ministers should vacate office. Okay, we move on to Article 149. In Article 149, we are providing clarity on the powers of the ECZ to delineate electoral boundaries and not boundaries of the provinces created. When you look at the statute book currently under Article 149, it has created confusion because it seems to place province creation on the ECZ, but it must be electoral boundaries. We move to Article 153. What we are trying to do in Article 153 is to include a member of parliament from each constituency within the district on the composition of the council. Still under Article 153, we are providing clarity that the term of a council is 5 years, commencing from the date of the first sitting of a council after a general election and ending on the day parliament is dissolved. We are okay? I can now move on to the next provision. Okay. The next article we are proposing to amend is Article 154. In Article 154, what we are trying to do is to maintain the election of mayor and council chairperson under the first past the post electoral system in accordance with Article 47(4) and to provide for the qualifications for election as mayor and council chairperson. When you look at this particular article currently, Article 154, it does not provide for qualifications for election as mayor and council chairperson. We are just trying to clean up the statute book. We move to Article 158. In Article 158, we are clarifying that where a vacancy occurs in the office of mayor, to provide for where a vacancy occurs in the office of mayor, council chairperson, or councillor, the processes and procedures relating to vacancies. That is what we're trying to do under Article 158. We move to Article 159. In Article 159, we are trying to ensure that an election petition for a local government election is heard and determined within a period of 30 days. We move to Article 176. In Article 176, we are revising the qualifications for appointment to the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet so as to reduce the number of years of experience from 10 years to 5 years. The other amendment is we are amending Articles 178 and 179 so as to ensure that there is no vacancy in the office of the Attorney General and the Solicitor General when a person assumes the office of President. Members, the last proposal we have for you is Article 266. These are definitions. We are just trying to provide clarity for certain definitions, including a definition of a child and an adult. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw hands going up, but this was like a tester. We were just having an overview, so we're going to break down most of these articles that Bubala gave us. So we wanted to go through, all of us know what the proposal, the bill has. So honorable members, I acknowledge your hands, very important. But at this point in time, I will call upon Mr. Alvin Himuludi. He's the Deputy Director, he's the staff for National Assembly of Zambia. He has been with Parliament for over 20 years, so he carries this wealth. To come forward, please. He will run us through the legislative process. So we have this bill. He's going to look internally within ourselves. What is there? So that we are all aware what steps happen within Parliament. Welcome, Mr. Himurudi, please. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The Right Honorable Madam Speaker, may I ride on the protocols that have already been observed? Just as I've been introduced, my name is Alvin Himori, Deputy Director.
Legislative drafting. The presentation is on the legislative process in Zambia. But let me mention that we're going to limit this with the procedures that are based with the National Assembly. Just as an introduction, and as mentioned by Madam Speaker, the legislative function for Parliament is vested in the National Assembly by way of the Constitution. You realize that in the Constitution of Zambia, Article 62 is the one that vests the legislative process in Zambia. And it provides that the legislative process of the Republic is vested and exercised by Parliament. Just as we have been taught, Parliament is a combination of the National Assembly of Zambia and the President. When you go further to Article 63, Article 63 provides that Parliament shall enact legislation through bills passed by the National Assembly of Zambia and assented to by the President. This is what I've just been talking about. Now, you realize that the constitution that we have in Zambia does not provide for the procedures that must be followed when we are making our laws. But the same constitution has provided under Article 77 that Parliament has got authority, the National Assembly has authority to regulate its own procedures. Therefore, the National Assembly, through the standing orders, has come up with a procedure that must be followed in as far as enacting legislation is concerned. So, first things first, before a law is made, we have what is called a bill. With government bills, we have been told that they come from the Ministry of Justice. When it is the private members' bills, you have an able department within the National Assembly, that is the legal department. We are in charge of drafting private members' bills. Members, those that have made an effort, Honorable Kangombe, are you there? He's one of the regulars. He's one of the regulars with us. He's always knocking for private members' bills. We draft them through the instructions that we are given by the members. But when it comes to government bills, they emanate from the Ministry of Justice. We get them from government printers. So, just on bills, we have what are called public bills, private members' bills, and what are called hybrid bills. This is a combination of both public and private bills. Just to mention, public bills sometimes take the form of government and private members' bills when they affect the public as a whole. The difference between the two, however, the government, which is introduced by a minister, whereas a private member's bill is one brought up at the initiative of a backbencher. This is just a summary of what I was talking about. Further, a private bill is one which is promoted by persons or bodies outside the House and only affects a limited section of the public. However, it is introduced in the House by a backbencher following the lodging of a petition through the promoters of the bill. That was decided for the stages that must be followed before a law is made. Just as we indicated, there were the first reading, second reading, committee session, and the third reading. This is a process which is familiar to most of you members. Let me start by posing a question. What is it that happens during the first reading stage? Any member willing to volunteer? During the first reading stage of a bill, what do you do, members? Someone with a mic, there's a hand there. What do you do during the first reading stage? Madam, can you open? I'm told that there's a button down which you need to press. I may not be familiar with that one also.
3 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you for the question. At first reading, basically it's just a mere introduction of the bill to the House and nothing much that is being discussed. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Just as we have said, this is the stage at which a bill is introduced. Now, when the bill is introduced, what is it that happens? The long title to the bill, as well as the objectives of the bill, are read to the members. Once that is done, depending on the nature of the bill, it is referred to a relevant committee. If it's a question pushing educational matters, it will go to the committee dealing with educational matters. If it's a bill dealing with health matters, there's a committee there which is relevant to that subject. So, when the bill has been referred to a relevant committee, there's a process which is going on there. What is it? Scrutiny of a bill in details. This is the place where a bill is going to be scrutinized in details. What happens there? Secretariat from that committee will invite relevant stakeholders that will be invited to come and help the committee to best understand the contents of the bill. When that one has been done, there is a report which must be prepared by the committee that was tasked to deal with the bill that was referred to the committee. So, when the committee is through its deliberation of the bill, there is a report which is prepared and taken before the House. So, that is the end of what happens at the first reading. Now, it's now a time for second reading. Second reading, this is the stage where the bill now must be debated in detail. In short, this is the debate stage. So the member who moved the bill is given an opportunity to talk about the bill. The chairperson of the committee that was considering the bill will also be given the opportunity to present the report of the committee. Members also are given the opportunity to debate. This is the debate stage. Now, there's one thing which you must mention. Once the bill has been debated, the Speaker will put a question so that there's a vote. With an ordinary bill, it goes through when it has attained what is simply called the simple majority, meaning those that are in support are more than those that are opposing. But when it comes to a constitutional bill, the rules are different. You are going to realize that in the case of a bill to amend the constitution, when the question is put by the Speaker that the bill be read a second time, a vote is immediately conducted, and the bill requires the support of not less than 2/3 of all the members of the Assembly on second reading. When we say members of the Assembly, it includes all members of the Assembly. In this case, I was guided, is it 167? 166? Yes, that is all members of the Assembly. It doesn't mean members present, no. The law is telling us that members of the Assembly. So, second reading, very crucial. 2/3 majority. If a constitutional amendment bill must go through, it has to attain what we are doing, not less than 2/3 of all the members of Assembly on second reading. Once the second reading stage is done, we have what is called the committee stage, very important stage in the legislative process. This is the stage which honorable members have to propose the amendments that they have. But we have to bear it in mind that you need to submit your proposed amendments to the legal department during this process. Let me just read it to be clear. At this stage, the bill is considered by the committee of the whole House. The committee examines the bill in detail, that is clause by clause. Members have a right to move amendments to a bill at committee stage. We are being told it's a matter of right. It's not discretionary, no. Members have a right to move amendments to a bill at committee stage. In this regard, a notice of amendment to a bill may be submitted at any time after the bill is read the first time. A member who wishes to propose an amendment to a bill shall submit the proposed amendment fairly written and signed by him or her to the clerk's office at least 24 hours before the date on which the bill is to appear on the order paper for committee stage or report stage. I decided to read this just to bring it to the attention of members. Many are the times that in the Legal Services Department, we receive proposed amendments from members when the door is closed. The processes are taking place tomorrow, the member comes. These are my amendments, may you consider them. We have told them that this process is tied to time. We are being told that as early as the first reading is done, if you understand, you can knock to our door, bring the proposed amendments that you have. So you don't bring them when it is late, because they will not be considered. So we are being told this is the process where a member has a right to propose the amendments which you have, so that the amendments can be done. From the committee stage, we have what is called the report stage. When you look at the committee stage, It doesn't differ much from the committee stage. The only thing here is that you are not bringing amendments that have got to do with clauses. Minor amendments to polish up the bill can be done at report stage. Nothing much happens here. What we are saying that the report stage in practice is similar to committee stage, except that here only additional amendments to the bill must be moved at this stage, and not the clauses which must be considered. The report stage affords members an opportunity to make further amendments of which notice would have been given. If the bill has not been amended at committee stage, the third reading is promptly proceeded with. What we are saying is that if the bill was dealt with at committee stage, then automatically the report stage shall come. If there were some proposed amendments, the report stage shall come. If no amendments came at report stage, by practice you have been watching, you have been doing this, honourable members, you directly go to the third reading. So the next stage in our legislative process is what is known as the third reading. Very important stage. This is the last stage at which the House is looking at the bill. The bill is reviewed in its final form and no debate takes place. There is no debate which takes place, but we are going to realize that in accordance with Article 79(2) of the Constitution, a bill to amend the Constitution shall not be passed unless the bill is supported on third reading stage, just as it happened at second reading. At third reading, we are also being told that for this bill to pass, there has to be votes of not less than 2/3 of all the members of the Assembly. So once this is done, we say that the House has passed the bill. The House passes the bill when the third reading is done. Once the third reading is done, then the bill has gone off the hands of the National Assembly. What's the next procedure? Is presidential assent. This is the stage at which now the bill is going to be presented before the President for assent. The President shall within 21 days sign the bill. If the President gives his or her assent to the bill, then it becomes law. It takes effect immediately it is published in the Government Gazette or as is stated in the Act. The President can however withhold assent to any bill, in which case the bill is returned to the National Assembly. When such a bill is returned to the Assembly, it has a message for the National Assembly to reconsider it. The National Assembly may amend the bill taking into account the President's reservations or pass it without the amendments on a vote supported by at least 2/3 of the members of Parliament. Where the National Assembly fails to pass the bill referred to it on a vote, the bill shall not be presented to Assembly in that session. If the President does not assent the bill submitted to him or her by the Speaker within 7 days, the bill shall be considered assented to upon the expiry of the stipulated period. That ends our submission, which I'm sure it was just a revision because honourable members, this has been your bread and butter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Himululi, for that articulate presentation. At this point in time, if you go to your program, you realize that we're supposed to go into a panel discussion, but by unanimous vote, it has been said that maybe we break down a bit, have a few questions. So I'll allow a few questions. I'll ask Madam Mubara and Mr. Francis Chilunga to maybe sit, including in case there's a question for Mr. Himululi for the two presentations that have been done. So bear with me, other resource persons. Questions around the overview as well as the legislative process, because other issues will be able to go into them sooner or later. Please come through. So just for clarity, honourable members, Madam Speaker, I must say that the panel is Mr. Alvin, Shabobo.
Good morning and thank you for still being with us on Parliament Television, where we're coming live on the consultative workshop for parliamentarians on the 2025 constitutional reform process. And currently going on are some presentations, and earlier on we had a presentation that was done by the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, Ms. Wubala Chiwampa, and she gave an overview of some of the amendments that have been presented. And later on we had Mr. Alvin Himululi, Deputy Director, Legal Department here at the National Assembly. He also gave an overview of the legislative process at the National Assembly. And just now the session will be going into the plenary session where parliamentarians are going to be asking questions to the panel.
My name is Nelson Musanya, MP for Kawamba Central and the Wabra Province Minister. Yes, Engineer Nelson Musanya. Thank you. The question, I have three questions on the bill. Number one, recently the Justice Minister was going around the provinces and we were privileged to receive wire in Wapula, and there were a number of people who made submission on the content of the bill as well as the 13 thematic areas. I would have thought that this particular gathering should have also considered what was coming from the submission that were made across the provinces. Will there be an opportunity when those submissions that were received by the Ministry of Justice would be considered alongside this bill? Because to date, the Minister did alert that ministry is remaining with two provinces. That means we are not complete as a nation until we visit the ministry visits the other two provinces. My question is, are we going to have sight of that report alongside the bill, and what will be the significance of that report? Secondly, on the composition of Parliament through proportional representation, the English normal engineer, so when we say not less than 20 women representation, not less than 12, why don't you just stick to the actual number so that doesn't leave room for speculation? Because if you say not less than 20, so if they are less than 20, we still have Parliament. Not more than, yes. So I want you to clarify that language so that for a layman, he should be able to understand. Thirdly, the submission across the provinces, particularly in Wapula, when the bill was, I think the minister came to Wapula when the bill had just been publicized a day before. And the people had hoped to see the delimitation report. It's still a big issue across the provinces that perhaps this 55 should by now be known so that people know where this 55 is coming from. Also to dispel the myth that maybe this could come from one region. Can you clarify whether this 55 will be given proportional representation according to the provinces, so that we know that each province, 55, if you divide by 10, so we know that at least there will be 5 from each and every province, and people will know that this is what is coming out of the delegation. Lastly, when we look at the MPs, the term of office, I want clarity. When the term of office is said to be 5 years, and then there is a dissolution a day before, how do you synergize
the term of office being 5 years and the dissolution a day before election. I think that there is a lot of conflict here in terms of interpretation. I'd like to get clarity on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm seated close to powers, so they have guided me that honorable members at least 2 questions each, because it's just that when the first one comes, you sometimes eat a bigger share, but subsequently all other members of parliament is 2 questions each, and we can go on.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm Engineer Oliver. I'm Chief Member of Parliament for Mungo Central, the home of the Convocation ceremony. So my question is to the replacement of MPs. I think that's one article where MPs are feeling very uncomfortable. MPs will be subject of dealing with the assassinations. So I wanted to find out the logic behind that, and if there is no other way in which we can be avoiding elections without the process of replacement. So I'm also against the by-elections, by the way. I really don't like them, but I thought that maybe we can put MPs at peace that this won't be the case, or this won't be exacerbated by this article. Thank you very much.
This side. Honorable, there is Honorable Kadana there next to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Informer. Yeah, first I would like to applaud the Minister of Justice and also the National Assembly management for having provided a platform or an opportunity for us members of Parliament to be brought to speed, an opportunity to render our thoughts to this process. I think we all need to acknowledge this very good gesture. Some of us are minds, and therefore important that we seek clarification what we don't understand. And in this particular case, I would like to seek clarification first, Article 52, which talks about when a member of Parliament dies, and that an election, both nomination and election must be called within 30 days, right? Yeah. Very snap election indeed. I want to find out whether this is very practical, given our country's situation in some parts where you have to actually conduct the nominations. First of all, the funeral process, nomination, campaign, and then election within 30 days. I would like you to clarify whether this is really practical. Perhaps 60 days in my view, given the past experiences and of our country. That's number one. Secondly, it's just a clarification, Mr. Himuri. You did mention that, of course, this is the legislative process, that one of the bills is the private member's bill, which we members can actually bring. Quite right and quite true. And you went further to say that one of the members has a several occasions to bring a private member's bill. I think that's incorrect. I think you meant private members' motions. I don't think up until now we have had any private member's bill brought before us by a private member, unless I was out at the time. I don't recall that. Thank you very much.
Okay, many I'll allow the resource persons to respond. Bearing in mind matters of delimitation, mixed member shall be elaborated further, so we can stick to the points. I thought I was on. Sorry, I think the logic people must have pressed around my mind, but I was clear enough. I'll allow the resource persons that are discussing while they are sharing points. I'll allow Mr. Yumudi to clarify the motion versus the private university.
Thank you very much. Just to indicate, it's clear to understand that there is what we call government bills and private members' bills. I said government bills comes from the Minister of Justice,
We do get them from there, they do come. Now, we have also got another route by which we can deal with a bill. This bill can come from a private member, and they are called private members' bills. It is true that
None of them has ever gone through, but I will tell you that we had one which was sponsored by Honorable Sunday Chanda. Due to some technicalities on the way, it may not have seen the light that
it should have. So there's this route. If you are planning of a law which you think that must be passed,
you can approach the department. The department drafts this. We've done it before. Honorable Sunday Chanda approached our department. We sat down, drafted the bill, but it could not see the light at the end of the tunnel due to whatever must have happened. But the procedures must be met, and it is one of the ways that the law provides for. I think.
Thank you. I will take the first and the second question, and then Mr. Chilunga and Diana will take the other questions. The first question was in relation to some of the submissions that have been received from the various provinces. Are we going to see those comments? If you notice Article 79 of the Constitution requires that we publish the bill in the Gazette. So we are still in the process of compiling all stakeholders' submissions. So at an appropriate time, we'll be able now to analyze the stakeholder comments that we receive to ensure that we see whether there are things that we can take on board or there are things that we could probably flag when we appear before the Select Committee of Parliament and see how best we can incorporate them in the bill. But currently, we are still receiving stakeholder comments. We are still within the 30-day period. So at an opportune time, we'll be able now to interrogate all the comments that we have received from the stakeholders. The other question was on the composition of Parliament. Why are we not using the actual words and not using the words not more than 20, not more than 12, not more than 3? This is just a drafting style. I will take you to the current Article 68. When it comes to nominated members, it reads, if I may be permitted, the National Assembly shall consist of B, not more than 8 nominated members. It's a drafting style, and it also allows for just flexibilities so that if we can't achieve the number, so that we will not be held accountable at an appropriate time. It's just a drafting style. So we follow that style throughout the Constitution. I will leave now the other questions, question 3, 4, to be dealt with by my colleagues.
Thank you very much, and we thank you, Madam Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and I will just write on the protocols that have already been established. There was a question to do with the delimitation report, where Engineer Nason Sonda needed to know which are these constituencies. As you are aware, the preserve and mandate of delimitation lies squarely with the Electoral Commission of Zambia. And indeed, the Article 58 as well as Article 229 gives the power to the Electoral Commission of Zambia to identify these 55 delimited constituencies and publish them at an opportune time. And indeed, they come into effect immediately after the dissolution of Parliament and the councils. And I'm glad we have before us the Electoral Commission of Zambia, which at an opportune time will be able to give us any details pertaining to that matter. What we've done as a ministry is indeed to facilitate for the drafting of that appropriate legislation. I thank you.
Good morning to everyone. This is my first time to speak. May I also write on the protocols already observed. My name is Diana Majokwe Shamabobo, and I am Assistant Commissioner at the Ministry of Justice. I am going to take 2 questions from the questions that were asked. The first question that I'll take relates to what happens to the term of Parliament in a case where the President dissolves Parliament. So when you look at the current provisions under Article 81 of the Constitution, the President has been given the power to be able to dissolve Parliament in a case where if the executive cannot effectively govern the Republic. However, under that same article, Article 81A, it stipulates that where Parliament is dissolved under clauses 3, which relates to where the President dissolves Parliament, then a general election is supposed to be held. So it means that when a general election is held, the term of Parliament will then begin to be counted from the time when the members of Parliament are elected into office. So it's a whole new term of office for members of Parliament, because we do have general elections that will take place. The second question that was asked relates to Article 52. The question was, is the time period that is given when a candidate dies for new nominations to be held sufficient? Under the current provision, the time period that is given is 30 days. So it means that where an election is cancelled as a result of the death of someone, the Electoral Commission of Zambia is supposed to hold elections within a period of 30 days. Just to mention that under the current Article 52, that provision is like that. So the period that is there is the 30 days. In terms of how practicable that is, I'm glad, again, as my colleague mentioned, that we have the Electoral Commission of Zambia in our midst, and they'll be able to address whether that time period is sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. There was also another question to do with the article, to do with the replacement of members of Parliament. And there was a concern from the Honorable from Mongo Central that indeed this can lead to some killing of members of Parliament and also targeting each other. You will recall, Honorable members, that initially there was a conversation on this article where it was proposed actually that there must be some sort of a list whereby if one member of Parliament, of course there is a vacancy that has been occasioned, they choose the second one. And indeed there was an outcry that indeed that in itself can lead to people killing each other, targeting each other. And now the proposal that you have in this bill is that the political parties themselves must exercise what we call intra-party democracy, where indeed in the event of a vacancy, from within the political parties, they must elect another member. In that way, you will not know which member will take the seat. There will not be need to kill each other in that event. So we think that this proposed provision is able to take care of the concerns that the Honorable Member from Mongo Central has raised. I submit.
Thank you. We'll just go into this round, because you realize that some of the questions now, we keep saying Electoral Commission is there, so just as well they should present. But I'll just allow this round of questions. Honorable Jinkuli already has the mic. Honorable Imanga and the team there, and then Honorable here, and then people will answer, then we go into presentation. Honorable Musanje, has enough? Okay, we'll close with Honorable Musanje. So from Honorable Jinkuli, we go behind to the Honorable members, then we come forward and we close with the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Allow me to recognize the presence of the Madam Speaker, the Deputy Speakers, Minister of Justice, and all the ministers, including our members of Parliament. Thank you so much for the presentations. My question is concerned with the vacancy of a seat in the House, where it's mentioned that the political party that sponsors the member of Parliament will exercise that will choose someone to replace that. Now, bear in mind that we've got other members who come, without fathers, without mothers, they're independent. I don't know how those will be attended to. I submit.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I think this is my appeal to Madam Speaker, that not most of the members here, some of them are not lawyers, they don't even understand some of the issues. I think it was going to be important to have the actual constitution with us, given when we are entering, because what is in the proposed amendments is not in full for us to understand what is being suggested. Suffice to say that the submission from, I don't know if it's the Electoral Commission of Zambia about the report. I think for me, I want to understand, yes, you have the mandate, and the Minister of Justice did mention that the report is a preserve of the Electoral Commission of Zambia. So, how are we going to know, for us to ensure that we support delimitation, if we don't know which constituencies are earmarked for delimitation? That's number one, and I want also the Minister of Justice to clarify. Secondly, is on the issue of the independence in terms of them having a by-election, then those sponsored by a political party, there's no by-election. The party only picks a person, elects a person to represent. I think it's unfair to the constituency, the particular constituency, because that is their democratic right to choose a leader who should represent them, regardless, because you find probably maybe if it was a seat held by PF, it would be won by UPND or by any other political party. So I think those we really need to look at them categorical. And also the issue of nomination and dissolution of parliament. I think it's not tolerating, because if we say we dissolve before a general election, a day before, then when are we going to do nomination? And when are people who want to stand also and independent going to find their nomination if they're left out by the party? Because that's a provision to have independent members of parliament. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation. My concern is also on the aspect of independence and those sponsored by political parties. I think the drafters who are legal people, they know that somewhere is Article 23(1) of the Constitution. It talks of a law not being discriminatory. The Constitution talks of a law that is not discriminatory to itself. Now, the proposed amendments in this bill, where you want to provide for an election within 90 days for an independent member, and in another breath, and a member sponsored by a political party, that political party must choose. That is discriminatory. So, as those who drafted, how can you clarify this disparity being proposed in the same constitution for the same event, an election of a member of parliament, being suggested to have two discriminatory provisions? Thank you very much.
All protocols observed. I just want some clarity, I think, on amendment to Article 47 on the first past and the post-electoral system, and also proportional representation. I want to find out, in an event that a candidate files under the first past and post, does not win an election, and this person is a woman, a youth, or a person with disability, are they eligible to qualify under this proportional representation through the party list?
Thank you very much. I will draw you to your submission. The Ministry of Justice, the drafters, Article 47, I will just talk about the same things that Honorable Chalo has raised, but in a different way, concerning the proportional representation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. I just wanted to find out what modalities or methods did you use to come out with a number 3 for persons with disabilities? Because if you look at the populations of persons with disabilities in Zambia, there are over 1.7 million, close to 1.7 million, which is almost about 7%. So what criteria did you use to come up with a number of number 3? Because it doesn't make sense. You just leave out. It's like we've just chosen every time to ignore our colleagues, persons with disabilities. So what criteria did you use to come up with a number 3? I thank you.
There are 2 hands here. Comrades, there are 2 hands here.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chauza Mulenga, Member of Parliament from Kwacha. Let me start by thanking the Minister of Justice and also our Right Honorable Madam Speaker for initiating this wonderful interaction so that we can be clarified on this very important subject. My concern is on further clarification on the criteria on the limitation. This is a very important issue that has brought a lot of appreciation, and if at all we don't clarify, it will bring a lot of apprehension, not only amongst ourselves as members of Parliament, but even the people out there. So I would like to find out on what criteria are you using to come up with the delimitation process? Are we looking at the size of the area or the population? I'm saying so because in certain areas you find the size of the constituents is very, very vast, and yet we have very few number of voters. And there are those constituencies that are smaller in number, but with larger populations, like for instance, Kwacha constituents, where I'm coming from. So what are you looking at in terms of criteria as we look at this important aspect? Thank you so much.
So maybe, can I just add something to my
Sorry.
colleagues? Okay, I think that will help us. And then, thank you.
As for the delimitation, we have heard that is the preserve of who is his age. So they are coming in the presentation. I understand the hesitance and wanting to know. But I think if for the interest of time also we have yes, to present to us. So I don't want us to feel like we are being cut, but let's ask what is not recruited so that we take advantage. Because there are a lot of other issues that we need clarification on. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Master of Ceremony, Madam Speaker, and everybody else. All protocols are observed. Thank you so much for this session. Honorable Dr. Joseph S. Mutsanje, Member of Parliament for Para Constituency in Choma. I've got just 2 items. I think one is just to ask the team, because I think that some of my colleagues did not hear well on dissolution and nomination process, just for you to go through it, for people to understand it properly. Now, my substantive questions are to do with the issue of
party-sponsored candidates. Here, I have got an issue. I heard the answer, but I'm not satisfied with the answer because we are dealing with politicians, and politicians can actually engineer everything to look so well that even though you say you don't know who is going to be the candidate, it can be engineered to the extent that I become the candidate. That is very much possible because we are politicians and we know what we do in that game. Number two is the rationale with the following Honorable Taengwa. I've seen 20 women, 12 youths, and 3 persons with disabilities. I'm seeing these numbers for the first time, and I don't see anywhere where the rationale has been explained, how we came up with the 20 women, 12 youths, and 3 persons with disabilities, and how they will be elected. So both the rationale and how they will be elected. We have clarification on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we respond to these questions, Minister of Justice, bearing in mind the guidance that we've gotten. If it's on delimitation, mixed member, it shall be dealt with in the next panel. Thank you.
I will take one question, and then the other questions, my colleagues will take it up. There was a question relating to Article 47. What happens in the event that you have first past the post, and then a woman or a youth or and a person with disability, they participate in first past the post? Are they allowed to proceed under PR? I will refer to the same article, Article 47. If you look at that particular article, it's leaving the whole process to prescribed, which means it will be provided for in an act of parliament. So the modalities on how we're going to proceed, those are going to be in an act of parliament. This is also further buttressed by Article 68. If you look at Article 68, it's also giving us the aspect of prescription. And if I may be allowed, let me read. It says 68. The National Assembly shall consist of not more than 20 women elected on the basis of the proportional representation electoral system in accordance with Article 47 2B as prescribed. When we use the word as prescribed in legislation, it means that now we will provide the modalities later in an act of parliament. I will take you to the definition section so that we look at the word prescribed. It's actually provided for under Article 266 of the Constitution. And it reads, prescribed means provided for in an act of parliament. So wherever you see the word prescribed, the modalities on how it's going to be done, it will still come in an act of parliament. I thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. There was also a question to do with issues of the law should not be discriminatory and unfair, and indeed the by-elections within the political parties, where the political parties are allowed to elect a member. How is this sitting? Honorable members, as we had stated, and the Right Honorable Madam Speaker did state from the outset, that indeed you have the president to examine these clauses and indeed interrogate them to see how indeed they can help us. I had stated earlier that of course there have been conversations on this article. One of them was the issue of having a list from the party, which indeed did not go well. But what we have now is where we are giving the party the right to exercise its intra-party democracy and choose in the event that there is a vacancy in the office of the Member of Parliament. And I've noted people have said, no, this may be discriminatory, and I think one honorable member stated that it also can lead to a situation whereby it takes away the democratic right from the electorate and give the party a lot of power. But of course, the drafting behind this clause is to allow the political parties to exercise their freedom to choose from amongst the members. And that's the submission.
Thank you. There was another question that was asked by Honorable Chinkuli with regards to what happens in a case where there is a vacancy in a seat that is held by an independent member of parliament. And I think as we are going through the discussions and the questions that were raised, our proposed amendment under Article 57, 1 of the Constitution clearly stipulates that when there is a vacancy in a seat that is held by an independent member of parliament, then a by-election in that case will be held. The only place where a proposal is being made that a by-election should not be held is for those seats that are held by seats held under the constituency-based seats, as well as those seats held by a mayor, a councillor, because under those particular provisions we have not touched the aspect of the electoral process. For that one, the electoral process remains the first past the post system. So there, a by-election will be held.
Thank you, honorable members. There was also a question to do with the criteria that was used in coming up with a proportional representation system for 20 women, 12 youths, and 1 person with disability. 3 persons with disabilities. Honorable members, I think the rationale behind this article is to ensure that we have an affirmative action. We did a bit of research looking at the way our National Assembly currently is sitting. You agree with me that in the southern region, we only have 3 countries that don't have proportional representation to guarantee the representation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Zambia, DRC, and Botswana. And for DRC, all of us know they have their own reasons why they have no affirmative action. As we are seated here in our assembly, we only have 1 youth. 1 youth. Yes, we only have 1 youth who is seated in our parliament. That is Honorable Emmanuel Nyuma. And over the years, the country has struggled to have youth representation in the House. For the women, we only have 21 women sitting in our House. And it is because of this that we say, look, we are going to have the first past the post system, the traditional system. It's not going to exclude our women, it's not going to exclude our youth, it's not going to exclude our persons with disabilities. They'll still participate. But this is an affirmative additional action where we can just guarantee their seats in the assembly. And we are saying to start with, let's start with 20 women. Meaning, in the last elections where we had 21 women, if we have these guaranteed 20, it would have meant we would have had 40 women sitting in our assembly. For the youth, if following the first past the post we had, we only have 1, it would have meant that with this affirmative action we have 13. So this is just an additional starting phase where we can guarantee the representation of our women, youth, and persons with disabilities. There was also a question that what criteria have you used on persons with disabilities? Because the number 3 is too low. And we did agree with the Honorable Member of Parliament. The number 3 indeed is low. And when we went around the country, the Honorable Minister of Justice, a lot of persons with disabilities representing had stated that indeed you have not done justice to us. We noted that normally our colleagues under disabilities, under the Central Statistics Office, the smart, they call it now Statistics Office, they do what they call a national disability survey. And you are right, Honorable. We are told that so for 2015, there were about 1.5 people or so living with disabilities. And from 2015 till to date, we are told in 2025 they will give us another survey to indicate how many persons in Zambia are living with disabilities. Maybe that conversation will help us know indeed the exact number of persons with disabilities, so that even as we have this affirmative action clause, we may be able to know to give them at least an appropriate number to have a guaranteed representation in our National Assembly. I submit.
At this point in time,
disability one. Can I comment on the disability? Just
okay. Yes, Dave.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that response. I think the disability survey of 2018 is very clear on the numbers and population in the country, so we can access it. It's there if you Google it. However, we've got 6 major domains of disability, and to me,
it would be better to have each domain of a disability represented. The hearing impaired represented, the visual impairment represented, those ones with the mental represented, and rated, all the 6 domains. Yes, there is a domain of disability. So, to me, I would rather we get each of the 6 domains of disability to be represented than to pick 3. I think that would be very, very unfair, because each one of them represents a different circumstance. Remember, disability is about how our society impedes the person from participating. And so each one of them faces different barriers. Each domain faces a different barrier. The hearing faces a different one. The physical faces a different barrier. So each of the 6 domains must be represented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I acknowledge your hand, Honorable Mwambazi. I also acknowledge your hand, but we need to close. As I said, we're going to go into these issues again. I beg, honorable members. So I'll just close with a comment.
Sorry, thank you very much. Just on the term of office for the Member of Parliament, I don't know if it has been clarified, because the term of office for a Member of Parliament starts from the day that they are sworn in, not from the day that they are elected. So in the event that Parliament is dissolved a day preceding the date of election, are we still covering that gap that is still there? Or should we rather say that the term of the Parliament will be dissolved once the members of Parliament elect are sworn in? So that, because what we have right now, we are not covering that gap. The vacuum will still be there. The 5-year period starts from the date that a member of Parliament is sworn in. Or is it from the day we have? Oh, okay. Maybe then I'm misunderstanding it. Okay, but let's have clarity on that. Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. This is an issue that we were looking at as a drafting team. And when we were doing our research internationally, we noticed that most of the provisions relating to the term of office actually end a day preceding a general election. And so we had to look at international best practice. But this is why we're here to hear submissions if there's a possibility of us taking it to once members of parliament are sworn in. But when you look internationally, look at most of the countries that we share in Africa, you will notice that it says a day before a general election. Most of them.
And Madam Speaker, that was the view, and we were of the view that the 90 days, as you've rightly stated, was too long a period, taking away the mandate which the electorate had given the honorable members 5 years. Now you take away 3 months, it would have made only 4 years, 9 months. And we thought a day would try as much as possible to cover the 5-year mandate period that was given to you, the honorable members of parliament.
Thank you very much. Just a comment. There's a statement I heard Honorable Musanja was whispering. He was whispering that let's change the bill then. Now, if you followed our presentation from the National Assembly of Zambia, we said that this bill is simply a proposed law. And what is proposed is not cast in a stone. We said you have a right. It's your right as members to move those amendments you feel that they will move in line with what you feel is right. So there are those provisions of the law which the National Assembly has put in place. So in short, I'm saying a bill is simply a proposed law. It's possible that a bill can change in shape on the floor of the House because members have decided that it should go like that. So let's take note that this bill is not as it is, it's cast in a stone, no. Subject to amendments. Of course, we have already mentioned the thresholds that are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to add on what Honorable Munsanja said, I host the biggest center for the people with disabilities called Kangonga in my constituency. And I think looking at the percentage, even if you look at 3 against the 1.5, it's not even a percentage, it's a dime. But why should we have 20, 20, and 3? Probably we can have 15, 15, and 13. I think that would be a good consideration with people with disabilities as well, because we've seen how they are sitting in other parliaments. I thank you.
Okay, at this point in time, I have closed questions. Even that has just been noted, but the minister just wants to wind up as I call upon the panel.
Allow you because you're the chair of legal. I just want to give a feedback quickly on what the people were saying. I think you need to hear it, members. I heard the question from Nason, Honorable Nason, about would there be a report? Most likely there wouldn't be a report, but we'll consider a lot. But I think it would be good in summary just to tell you what people are saying, especially on new members.
Thank you very much. First, allow me to recognize the protocols as already established. The panel, I'm looking at the definition, the definition clause, Article 266, where you are trying to bring in some definitions. There's one very important omission that I want you to take into consideration. It's on the definitions. The definition of who a public officer is. This has been highly contentious. People who store public monies are walking free today because they are not public officers. The Anti-Corruption Commission has raised this issue over and over regarding certain public officers like judges. Currently, judges are not being embraced here. Permanent secretaries. There are permanent secretaries who are charged for corruption and embezzling public resources. They are not public officers. So I just thought I should bring it out that we may consider aligning or resolving the problem that is under the Anti-Corruption Commission Act, Anti-Corruption Commission Act number 3 of 2012. I thank you, Honourable Minister, for giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
Honourable members, just quickly as we went round, first of all, it was such a great success, and I know that the conversation bended on the chiefs. It wasn't just the chiefs. There were church leaders, as you heard. There were CSOs who are far from Lusaka, and people with disability. Of course, the number of 3 came about. But I want to quickly say these few things. The public also did feel that instead of us extending the time of the member, the chair, the council, or what is it, mayor and council chairperson, that we should be moving in a direction where you members or we members should also become just students. I'm just telling you. You said you wanted to hear a little bit, so I'm just giving you a snapshot. Okay, that was the biggest. You need to hear it. Gift doesn't like me on this one. But I have to be honest. The other one also, they felt that actually the term should be left as it is, the 4 years, 9 months. Because they felt that you are going to have, we are going to have an undue advantage as it is the election time. The other one also, they don't want us in the council, okay? Because they feel that when you go there, when we go there, we don't attend the meetings, first of all, because we are busy. Secondly, we just bring more confusion because we become overbearing in the councils. So I think it's important as you go, as you hear the first reading, as we go in the select committee, and we hope that the select committee will get some of these views. Really, that was a strong view. In our lesser things, they were fine, apart from wanting the delimitation report. But when it comes to members of parliament, they were actually saying no to a lot of clauses that we have put there for ourselves. and they feel that we are saving ourselves. Okay? So that perception, we need to change it. We really need to be clear. Otherwise, that is some of the feedback. And then lastly, the chiefs felt that they should have also been added in their clauses that their cases be handled in the House of Chiefs and Courts. I thought I'd give you just those few things.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for this powerful panel and the Minister of Justice for responding to the questions. Two will step down, and my colleague has already stepped down. But to add to the panel, you realize we're a bit behind time, but we'll see what we can do. We go to session 2, which is membership to National Assembly of Zambia and local authorities. Mr. Francis Chilunga is already there. I introduced him. He's the Commissioner, Revision of Laws, and he has over 10 years experience at the bar. I will call upon the Chief Electoral Officer of the Electoral Commission of Zambia, Mr. Brown Kasaru, to join the group. As he comes, he's loaded. He already has questions. So him, as he's presenting, he will touch on delimitation, mixed member proportion from the Zambian context. We also have Dr. Victor Shale from South Africa, who has over 20 years expert in elections, conflict management, political parties, democracy and governance, to join the panel. We're very grateful that he was able to join. You may want to acknowledge the fact that he's a co-author of the SADC model law on elections, which is key, because that's a yardstick of how, or a benchmark for elections in terms of what are the standards. I also have a very rich resource person who's going to come on board, Mr. Shaunene Kurasha from the SADC Parliamentary Forum. He is the Program Manager for Democracy, Governance and Human Rights. He has over 16 years experience at the regional level. But he also has over 10 years experience, like myself, working in the Parliament of Zimbabwe. So he understands Parliament from the perspective of how we operate, but he also has this regional overview. So we have this rich panel which will break down some of the questions that we had around that. A round of applause, please, for the panel that we have. To kickstart the process, I'll call upon Dr. Shale. I'll give him 10 minutes to just make a presentation around electoral systems. Dr. Shale, please.
Showing? Is it on? Program Director, thank you very much for the opportunity. And because this is also, I think the earlier program director was saying it's a rare opportunity. It is always a rare opportunity for me and most of my peers to address our leaders, because not many of people my age get to speak to their leaders, get to address the speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, we really are privileged to be addressing you and members of Parliament today. And I would like to align myself with the established protocol in the interest of time. Are we good to go? As indicated, my name is Victor Shale, and I'm here to just give an overview on electoral systems for promoting democracy in Africa, some challenges and prospects. Program Director, you would like to seek your indulgence to allow us to tag team with Mr. Kurasha. So I'll do first part of my presentation and then he will immediately come to deal with a bit of what we are asked to discuss. and then I'll do the sweeping thereafter. So I have to use my pen? Okay, okay, all right. Okay, thank you. So let me go straight to it and talk about the electoral system. I must say that this earlier session has been quite important. It has helped me to sort of sharpen my entry points. And so to begin with is to say what we are essentially talking about this morning. Of course, we're talking broadly about the constitutional amendment, but our brief was to zero in on the electoral system. And so for me, dealing with an electoral system is dealing with the question of the centrality of elections in a democracy. So elections, which my colleague the CEO will talk about, and electoral systems have to be understood within the overall context within which they exist. And I think the number of questions that came from the members this morning attest to this point, because the questions are peculiar to Zambia. And in fact, I was whispering to Gurasha as you were asking questions, because I can't help thinking how that would apply in our context in South Africa. And he was also looking at the Zimbabwean context to say, what would that mean? But obviously, this is subject for another day and discussions, because every political system, party system, and electoral system are peculiar to a country. Now, I want to be as simplistic as possible, that when we talk about electoral systems, we are talking about the regulation of elections of election of public officials. So this is basically the regulation of the relationship between voting and the elected officials. So when you talk about an electoral system, you're basically talking about the conversion of the valid votes, the votes that have been cast, conversion of those votes into seats. So an electoral system is a mechanism that has brought all of us here. The voters have spoken through casting the ballot. The ECZ then applies a system that helps them to convert those votes into seats. That's the simplest definition of an electoral system I can provide. Now, it is important to say also that with its specific electoral rules and regulations, an electoral system determines the winner, the composition of parliament or of parliamentary representatives and government. It is an essential component of any legal framework. So if we had time, I've been taking notes because there are some critical points raised by the members of parliament arising out of the sections that were outlined here. There are some specific questions that really talk to this point, that link the Constitution as the bedrock of government and bedrock of governance in Zambia, and how we then find ourselves seated here today. And one of the things you cannot afford is to have some gray areas in a constitution. The constitution must be very clear. It mustn't beat about the bush. Because if you have a gray line or gray areas in the constitution, you can be sure your electoral system is going to be flawed. I think that's one of the points that we need to, as we deliberate as members, we need to make sure that we are unambiguous in the constitution itself. So those amendments have to really carry that spirit. But electoral systems, for those of you who are familiar with the different typologies of electoral systems, you will agree with me that electoral systems are more than the complex mathematical formulas of converting votes into seats. The reason is because electoral systems, beyond being a formula that calculates how many votes and therefore how many seats for PF, how many seats for UPND, how many seats for UNIP, how many seats, I don't know if MMD still exists, but all those other political actors. Electoral systems are also, I would argue, part of the engineering of a political system. So, when you have a country that has a lot of ethnic groups, an electoral system becomes part of that architecture to deal with the diversity in a country. Electoral systems also deal with the point that has already been adequately canvassed, inclusivity. They become a vehicle through which you ensure inclusivity, and also to avoid a single party government. But, Honorable Speaker and distinguished members, we also cannot run away from the reality that one of the realities that is almost becoming a curse in African politics is that as much as we entrench in our constitutions that people have the right to associate, people have the right to form parties, we are also having a huge problem of proliferation of political parties, of people who can hardly have support in the passenger seat of their cars, coming to the ECZ or any other authority to register political parties during election, and the constitution allows them. So an electoral system can also be a mechanism through which you regulate so that there is some threshold. I nearly jumped off my seat when I saw a clause that says nomination threshold is 7. I hope I may have missed that. Of course, again, this is context specific. I nearly jumped because in South Africa, threshold is no below 15,000 registered voters. So this is again depending on a context, we acknowledge. But this is just a point to illustrate the point I'm talking about. Now, in terms of criteria, electoral systems must essentially meet the following criteria. One, representativity. I'll try to be brief because we have already spoken about this, which is about fair balance, a correlation between the number of seats and the various social and political forces. Presence of marginalized groups such as women, youth, ethnic minorities, and the disabled in the National Assembly and other elected bodies. Secondly, effectiveness. Electoral system is about effectiveness. It must achieve effectiveness rather. We're talking about the ability to generate a manageable number of political parties in parliament. I've just made the point. And then it must be a system that can aggregate interests effectively and can produce timely political decision making. Thirdly, electoral systems must achieve a genuine choice. Here we're talking about the fact that the voters must have the chance to select not only among parties and lists, but among candidates. So I noticed that the current and the proposed dispensation does still factor in those. So it's going to be quite interesting. I think one of the members actually raised that point about how are you going to maneuver the opening that is created either by resignation or untimely death of a member, because I sense that you want to deter or avoid by-elections, maybe because obviously there are many other disadvantages of those. But you also have to then stay true to the constitutional prescripts. The discrimination that one of the members was talking about. So how you navigate that and protect those rights in the Constitution is going to be fundamental going forward. So that's part of, and then that has to translate to the electoral system. Transparency goes without saying. The voters must not be confused by too elaborate systems whose complexity becomes an obstacle to exercise their will. Legitimacy. An electoral system should reflect, as much as the Constitution, a genuine national consensus and not be seen by significant sectors of the population as flawed or unfair. Because an unfair system brings about an unfair result, and this leads to lack of confidence in the Parliament, thereby affecting effective participation by the citizens. At this point, Program Director, may I then take my colleague to deal specifically with some of the preponderant electoral systems, especially the first past the post that has been canvassed, and then the PR, and then I will do the sweeping after he's done to just look at the mixed member, which again is actually specified in the proposals. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Ceremony. What did I do? Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Minister of Justice and other ministers present, Honorable Members of Parliament, colleagues. I would not have come here if the Secretary General of the SADC Parliamentary Forum had not released me. So allow me to detox you a bit from the issues we're dealing with and go into some reflections of sorts before I come back to deal with the issue of the two electoral systems, the proportional representation and the first past the post. The Secretary General of the SADC Parliamentary Forum told me to convey to Honorable Speaker and the Honorable Members that we celebrate as the SADC Parliamentary Forum, celebrate the Parliament of Zambia, not only as the founding member of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, but because of its distinctiveness in terms of the role that it has played in advancing interparliamentary cooperation in the SADC region and beyond. I'm well aware that as we speak, the Honorable Speaker serves in the Executive Committee of the Interparliamentary Union, for instance. Equally, we received a member from the Parliament of Zambia during the last plenary assembly in Victoria Falls, who has just been elected as the international chairperson of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. In fact, that honorable member won by 1 vote, and I shall allude to that when I talk about the first past the post-electoral system. We recognize Zambia specifically in terms of its contribution to the good practices in the family of legislatures, not just in the SADC region, but beyond. And 6 things stand out. Is the re-engineered budget process that Zambia has adopted and To date, Zambia is one of the few SADC countries that actually have established and have functioning parliamentary budget offices to support members to be effective in public financial management. Zambia is also credited for strengthening its committee systems, which has deepened oversight, because committees are a very important cog in the engine when it comes to effective delivery of parliamentary mandate. I used to belong to, when I was in the Parliament of Zimbabwe, a body that was called Zimzam. I hear it has now grown and brought in Zimzam both, Zimzam Uganda, many others, and where the conversations around parliamentary reforms were the main focus, and Zambia is led in this regard. We also recognize Zambia as the pioneer when you look at the SADC region in terms of establishment of the Parliament Radio and Parliament TV. The rest are trying to play catch up, learning from Zambia. One of the responsibilities you have, Zambia, is that because you have a lady speaker, she must, or there's expectation that she must lead as a champion for gender equality. And this she has done, and obviously requires the support of the whole of Parliament. And that is something that we recognize. During the last plenary assembly in Victoria Falls, Madam Speaker shared some of the good practices that are happening in Zambia on the gender equality front, and we would wish for Zambia to continue on that path. Having talked about that, allow me to say to the honorable members, you may not be part of the 6 delegates that you sent to SADC PF, which is the Speaker plus 5 other members who must reflect the gender and political diversity of your Parliament, but you remain an integral part of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. And at this point, it is important that we continue to support the ongoing process of the transformation of the SADC Parliamentary Forum into the SADC Parliament, a process that the Honorable Speaker has been part of. Even members of the Zambian delegation, some of whom are ministers now, including the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Finance, have been part of that process. The agreement amending the SADC Treaty has been signed, which means legally the first hurdle is overcome, but we are in protocol stage where member states have been given copies, the draft copies of the Constitution establishing the SADC Parliament, and they have to make comments, and obviously that process includes Parliament, and therefore we would wish to raise awareness about that, but also to implore you to continue to be glued. Lastly, something that we must commend is the establishment of the Parliamentary Institute, under which this training is being organized. It's very important at this point, where policy processes must be driven by data, that we capacitate honorable members to be able to eloquently ask and scrutinize some of the things that I was hearing. The only slight disappointment I have, Madam Speaker, is that I was waiting to hear one member say, in fact, according to the SADC model law on elections, this provision is aligned or misaligned in this regard, because that model law is a product of the SADC Parliamentary Forum and parliamentarians, some of whom are here. But the debate has been very enriching. This is how you build democracy. Sometimes it's very easy to be very domestic and get consumed and miss the point that conversations are an important element or an essential element of building strong democracies. Having said that, allow me to move to and spotlight the 2 electoral systems that have been eloquently spoken to in the draft, in the bill. proportional, first past the post. At a time when things are happening between Iran and Israel, this is not a familiar, a very friendly sound. I'm not insinuating that anyone is a ballistic missile. Right. So the broad categorization, and there's quite a wide menu in terms of choice of electoral systems, as Victor alluded to. But we'll focus specifically on these two and the third one, the mixed member proportion, because they are specifically talked about in the bill. The first past the post, put simply, is what people often call the winner takes all, which is the system that Zambia and all other former colonies of the British Empire inherited at independence. Sometimes it's very easy to forget that we just inherited those systems. We defended them with our lives and are not open to other options. But in terms of its main tenets, it's viewed as the simplest system in the sense that it's a majoritarian system using a single member district and candidate voting center. So you will have your ballot paper with a single member from each, representing each political party or as an independent, and you cast your vote. The determination of the winner is that the person who gets the majority of the vote is declared the winner. Whatever happens to the effort of the other parties, say, no, you try harder next time. I've, in my life, been able to witness an election that was determined by 193 votes. The 2015 Seychelles elections for presidential ballot. And you must see the agony of the close second. But the system says, well tried, but tough luck. So voters choose one candidate on their ballot. The candidate with the most votes win the seat, even without absolute majority. As I said, it is a common Westminster system, common in most of, when you look at the SADC region, majority of the countries are actually Westminster systems, use Westminster system with slight variations. Sorry. Right? So it's preferred, first of all, for its simplicity, because even you don't need to invest a lot to understand how this system works. There's a system that is very popular in Malawi, where they call it Belekamwana, where you just have your candidates lining up, particularly in primary elections of parties. You have your candidates lining up and their supporters at the back. And sometimes you don't need to count, you just, no. And sometimes as your queue becomes smaller, you even have your supporters joining the other ones. Then the system tends to produce single-party governance and avoids coalitions. So it is credited for producing strong governments, stable governments, and you also have a direct link between the members and the constituencies that they represent. When you are asked, or members want to know who is our member of parliament, they have a specific member that they can point to as the member representing them. In practice, when you look at most jurisdictions where first past the post is used, you see a shift towards two-party system, which in a way enhances competition between the two main parties, but also including in terms of the issues and the policies, because there is a lot of fluidity that's happening currently with political parties, where if in the past we talked about left and right parties, at the moment that clarity as issues are not being put forward a lot, policy issues, sometimes it's not too clear, but the majoritarian system is that inherent ability to literally reduce the competition to the two main parties, because when you look at the way it's structured, particularly in parliament, who is the ruling part and who is the official opposition. Thereafter, there is hardly interest in terms of the other parties, and even the way they have representation is quite low. Then the issue of extremism, which is a dynamic of our politics, sometimes including ethical dimension. This system has the inherent ability to be able to eliminate that. And because you are electing a candidate that you know specific to a constituent, there is also a focus on the merit or capabilities of the individual candidate. The disadvantage, of course, is exactly where Zambia is at the moment, where after winner has taken it all, there is something that is left that threatens the legitimacy of your democratic system. It can't just be the mighty ones who must win and it ends there. So it creates significant disparity between vote share and the seat share. It also excludes minorities. There is also the issue of wasted votes, which I talked about. I've given the example of the recent UK elections, where the Labour Party received 33.7% of the votes, but with that they actually secured 63.2% of the seats in Parliament. So it's like a third of the vote, and you are able to garner 2/3 of the seats. And therefore that raises questions about the legitimacy. What about the rest of the parties that have taken the other share of the vote? It is the problem of splitting of votes. We have seen this particularly in situations where political parties fail to manage internal democracy and members stand as independent. Sometimes you have members that are essentially from the same party standing, splitting their vote, and you have the winner who actually would have been third or would have been second at most if there was no splitting of that vote. Then the issue of boundary delimitation, again a subject that is being discussed. The risks around gerrymandering, the manipulation of electoral boundaries. The usually political parties will know where their strength is, and you find constituents that mirror the boundaries of our countries that were drawn by colonialists. I come from a parliament, from a country whose shape represents a kettle of teapots, and you ask, what could have happened? Were they thinking about coffee? Why did you do this straight line around here and curved around here? This does happen. Sometimes what you see is that ruling parties lose support in certain areas. In rural areas, in urban areas, at least in the SADC region generally. And then there will be those compensatory constituents that are on the outskirts. We have a name that we give them where I come from. There's a constituent called Harare South. It's always a constituent where you know that there's an element of a bit of rural to counter the urban vote. So that risk is there. Then it also is incapable of responding to changing shifts in opinions. Like I said, that sometimes there's consensus to say what is wrong with us having women, having youth, having persons with disability, having minorities represented in parliament. but the system simply is incapable of allowing you to do that. I've been told that I have limited time. As a result, let me just quickly go to the PRS system, which actually stands as the opposite of what I was describing. This system reduces the disparity between the party's share of the vote and the share of the seat. So, broadly speaking, if you have 40% of the votes, you must have 40% of the seats. This is what the PRS system affords you. Then it also allows multi-member districts where, because you are voting for a political party, then you are voting for many members within the district based on the allocation that is given for each province, if it was in the case of Zambia. Then it comes in two main variations, the PR list and the single transferable vote. This is not very common even in Africa. The most common is the PR list, which is used in most of the countries that use the PR system, like South Africa, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia. Then so I already spoke about the fact that it has fair representation, it allows for inclusivity. I'll share the outcome of the 2024 South Africa elections, and you'll be able to see the diversity of political parties that actually are able to garner seats because of the system. And then it minimizes wasted votes. Every vote counts. It also lays the ground for consensus building or collaborative governance. When you look at across Europe, I'm trying to, okay. So if you look at the recent South African election 2024, look at the correlation between the votes, the percentage of the vote, and the seats allocated. You see that correlation. So no vote gets wasted. The formulas, I'm sure when Victor presents, you also talk about the variation, which is the mixed member proportion, where you're trying to compensate for what the PR system, the first past the post system cannot give you. And we see now countries, as Zambia is trying to do, coming up with the PR system. Its disadvantage, of course, the issue of coalition governments. They can be an opportunity and a risk in terms of managing affairs of the state. It means sometimes decisions cannot be made fast enough to respond to the needs of the population. Sometimes there are political quarrels, and that filters into government. Because of the too many parties, that can also cause fragmentation. Because there is no correlation with constituencies, it means there is reduced accountability in terms of your relationship to the constituents. And the formulas, remember Victor said the electoral system at the end of the day must be simple enough for people to understand. PRS system uses a lot of statistical formulas, and that often obviously is beyond the capabilities of the ordinary. Right. Let me end because I'm upsetting the chairperson. I will end by just giving a blow-by-blow comparison so that we are able to appreciate the two systems. When you look at the constituent type as a criteria, for instance, first past the post single member, the PR is multi-member or national list. Vote to seat, the plurality system, he who has or she who has most votes win. The other one, proportionality applies. Representation accuracy, it then gets distorted sometimes, where you win by that very narrow margin, and the rest feel disgruntled because they have not been able to express, to have their vote count. Then the PR is that opportunity to have accuracy in terms of the representation. When it comes to minority and women gender equality outcomes, first past the post is inherently incapable of producing inclusive outcomes. So there is a correlation between the system you have and your ability to be able to accommodate the groups that we talked about. Then stability, you have tend to have stable governments under the first past the post, and it can get complex sometimes when you have PR and you are in a coalition government. I'm sure those who follow in the SADC region, if you have followed Lesotho, you have followed South Africa, there have a few countries that even were in such arrangements before. It gets complicated sometimes. Then the voter choice, the other one focuses on the party, the other one focuses on the candidate. So this demonstrates how countries that use PR have been able to respond to needs around inclusivity, particularly on gender. And if we had time, I would have given you the statistics for instance, for countries that have now use mixed member proportion, such as Zimbabwe, and how they performed before they had the PR system. However, when you adopt a PR system by having quota seats for women, that must not be reduced to saying, women, you have your seats already reserved. We must allow women to still compete. We must allow our politics to be still progressive, so that the quota seats are compensating for what is already there. How do you compensate for what is not there? We need the women to continue with the mechanisms that support women to be able to make it through the first past the post, and then the quota seats become an addition. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, I would want to add my voice to what Victor said. When you are dealing with issues such as the quota seats, which is an effort to compensate for historical imbalances, it will be very important that you are also deliberate in the way you are drafting, so that you are not seen to be taking away the gesture of compensation. In other words, the question that was raised earlier around the up to a certain number, that minimum threshold must be stated if that is the intention. Why? Because you are almost seen to be taking by a left hand what you are giving by the right hand. So drafting alone, we must be seen to be deliberate in terms of how we are emphatic on granting the compensatory seats, so that there is no ambiguity. And because that ambiguity is a risk of finding itself through the Electoral Act. And then you have a lot of litigation around it, and it then spoils the intention. Allow me not to upset the chair any further and say, you can't build inclusive democracies with exclusive systems. So we need to be inclusive in terms of whatever we are doing, inclusive in terms of looking at the frameworks that are existing that must help us unlock some of the questions that are being asked, inclusive in terms of the way we are deliberate in carrying the people along and genuinely factor in the submissions they are making. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can change. We just wind up with Dr. Shelley, and then we'll go to
Yes, thank you.
5 minutes. Okay.
Well, I'll be less than 5 minutes. Thank you. Madam Speaker, just to finish up with the MMP, I can find it, no problem. When you put it this way, I can't. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes. With the MMP that is expressed in the proposed amendments. So, in short, as you would have realized, the MMP combines the first past the post and the proportional representation as was articulated by the colleagues before. Now, it will be interesting, and Madam Speaker, because of time, some of these things I'll just touch in passing, tangentially for the sake of time. But I'm going to be watching very closely with interest, because what happens in Zambia should inform what happens in other countries. We learn as countries. So one of the contentious issues around for countries that have gone this way, MMP, is that it will be interesting to understand in the Zambian context, jurisprudence, are voters voting for a party or for MPs? In other words, as you adopt the MMP, what guardrails do you have that as Victor Shale for UPND, once in Parliament, I can exercise a particular space outside of the party? So it's going to be interesting, because if that is not taken care of, you're going to have a lot of instability in Parliament arising out of intra-party squabbles which are created by the system itself. Passing on, just to say that the MMP comprises the majority ceiling based on the first past the post and minority premium, which in some cases is for accommodating the political parties so that every vote counts. Or, as has been said in the amendments, I think ours is an introduction of a PR, but with a compensation in mind. So I think that's the route that we are taking. But even having said so, I will leave it. I am not going to touch, because I had wanted to speak a bit about the implications of the proposed system on ballot papers. But I think the proposal says there is going to be one ballot paper. That's the impression I get. I vote a party and the EZZ will do the rest. But I think that is also not as simple as it sounds on paper. There needs to be deepening of the thing, but this is a reason for my brother Brian to invite me back. But another contentious issue is around the MPs. I just checked with Commissioner that you don't yet have political party funding. Because where MMPs, not political party funding, but political funding, so it's different. We're grappling with that in South Africa now. We're having a tough time with political funding. In fact, from here I'm flying straight to Durban, where we are meeting to discuss that at length. So, where you have, and by the way, Madam Speaker, I observe that from the proposition, I can already deduce that even though Zambia is embarking on this electoral reform, it is almost, maybe without meaning it, but it seems to be adopting a minimalist approach to the reform. Because if you expand it to maximalist, then the issues around financing, because the honorable members here are not going to keep quiet for a long time about funding, financing, because there is a trend also in the region. As you may be aware, The leading countries in political financing, interestingly, are Angola, Mozambique. You could say those two guys are rich because they have oil. But in the mix, you have the Kingdom of Lesotho. They finance campaigns of independents and political parties. So this is maybe food for thought as we go. So if that was to be a scenario, then you would have to deal with how you are going to finance the parties or the MPs. If you have MPs that emerge in parliament out of the equalization, if I am a woman elected through the PR and you give party to MPs who are elected for constituencies, the other side of constituencies, what does that say about me? We just said there was a point that no, we need to increase the number of youth, number of PWDs. Are the PWD representatives going to be provided the similar support as the other members of parliament who, in places where this has been done, always want to have a lion's share because they say they are representing a constituency? So the other ones are almost seen as if they are cousins. They are not really MPs. They are like MP light. So these are some of the questions that we have to deal with. And of course, it was interesting that there may even be killings. Let's say there are certain provinces where being a councillor or a mayor or an MP or an endangered species because they keep killing each other. But it's not necessarily for inclusivity in parliament. In our case, it's for fighting over tenders. Which is why, again, that Honorable Minister was saying, some members of the public are saying, get the MPs out of here. Not in our councils and things. It's Africa, that's part of the reasons why then people keep shooting each other. Because of that blaring of so conflation of the spheres of governance, where then you have another sphere of government interfering, or as Honorable Minister saying, perceived to be overbearing on another sphere of government. So those are the questions for us to deal with. So the MMP is a complex electoral system and it requires an extensive voter education. And as my colleagues just said, there are again advantages and disadvantages we can speak of, time allowing. And I will skip this because I was just saying what are some of the factors impacting the chosen electoral system's contribution to democracy. We will leave the slides with the Secretariat to distribute to the members. I just want to conclude to say there is no such a thing as a perfect electoral system. It's work in progress, and electoral system, as I said in the beginning, do not appear in a vacuum. They appear within a political system, and engineering of these systems it cannot be ahistorical. It is dependent on culture, politics, and demographics. And of course, then we have already spoken about a representation of the diversity of the Zambian nation and polity. And so when we do this, we must also think beyond accommodating all the sectors, the diversity, but we must also look at the broader impact of the system to democracy. So we have to consistently refine the electoral system. If we choose to go incremental, because I was saying maybe we look like we are going minimalist, it's fine. So long as we understand that we must keep on working on the electoral system. The outcome of the coming elections may actually push us, propel us to doing further reforms. In South Africa, we just had an epoch-making reform where, for the first time, we introduced independent candidates in our general election. But we couldn't even agree, but we didn't have time to keep fighting over the reform. So, in the law that amended the system, we had to entrench a clause that said, immediately after the elections, on such and such a date on this month, a minister will establish another panel to continue working on the electoral system for a period of 2 years. That panel is busy with the report now. So we reformed last year, we are reforming again. Before the end of this year, we will have a further refined electoral system. So this is work in progress. In other words, we should never find ourselves as a nation fighting over an outcome of a particular phase of this journey. I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, and thank you, honorable members. We'll go into, we have the regional perspective, broader angles.
But now we're coming back home again. We had started with home, we went regional, we're coming back home. Bear with us. I know we sat for a while, but this is very important. At this point in time, I'll call upon Mr. Kasaru, the Chief Electoral Officer. Let's give him a hand. Well, very critical presentation. Mr. Kasaru, your questions are very clear. So as you are presenting, I believe you'll be able to come out matters of delimitation. We'll start with that, and then we'll go into the mixed member. He'll focus mainly on those two issues. So the questions that were being raised shall be answered by our Chief Electoral Officer. I thank you.
Then we also recognize the Right Honorable Madam Speaker and the Honorable Ministers here present. Let me simply say all protocols observed. It's indeed an honor for me and the team to be here, especially that we usually meet in another sphere, the electoral field. Yeah. I think taking a cue from the program director in terms of the time, I think that the previous two speakers have exhaustively covered the issue of electoral systems, and in terms of the context, the previous session I think covered local, and I think the questions, so probably we can leave that to the question. I thought, let me just limit that presentation to just delimitation, and then we can proceed from there. So I think the Honorable Minister of Justice earlier indicated that delimitation is the preserve of the Electoral Commission, which is true according to Article 229. So where the Commission shall, it says that the Commission shall delimit electoral boundaries. In terms of the detail of delimitation when it comes to constituencies, I think the statute books limit us to just the two articles in the Constitution, 58 and 59. 58 is some sort of principles and some level of procedure. So it speaks to Zambia being divided into constituencies and wards for purpose of elections to the National Assembly, and then a number of constituencies shall be equal to the number of seats, which ties in to Article 68 that then provides that safeguard around the number of, in this case now would be those for the first past the post. It's at 5 it speaks to the Electoral Commission at intervals not more than 10 years reviewing the names and boundaries of constituencies and wards. And then the main interest here, probably to preempt the question, is the names and details of boundaries of constituencies and wards shall be published in the Gazette and shall come into effect on the next dissolution of Parliament. I think to probably also speak to a question that has already arisen. So you will note that in terms of process and principle, Article 58 is all we have. When it comes to delimitation of constituencies, the Electoral Process Act does not speak to it. So from the Electoral Commission point of view, this process is tackled in a three-stage, if I may put it that way. Firstly, it's the Commission goes on the ground to consult stakeholders for purposes of putting together a recommendation to government. So this is what we normally refer to as delimitation exercises in Zambia. The commission goes on the ground to receive submissions and put together a recommendation to government. Why? Because implementation of the new constituencies is dependent on Article 68. For that to be amended to increase or to revise the number. But in order for government to present that bill before Parliament, it has to be informed by submissions from stakeholders. So in the recent context, 2019, the Commission went on the ground, received submissions, and this culminated into a report that was presented to the head of state. That report, as has been already discussed, was reviewed and is what informed this bill and the proposal for 55. So that's the second stage now of government considering the submissions of the Electoral Commission and the recommendations of the Electoral Commission and using that to inform the amendment to the Constitution by way of prescribing the number in Article 68. So that's the second stage. The third stage is what we're reading here. Now the implementation. Upon amendment of the Constitution now, that's when the Commission goes on the ground to draw these boundaries and then publish them in a gazette and they take effect at the next dissolution of Parliament. So that is the three-stage process of how the Commission handles this. Now, in terms of the criteria, Article 59 speaks to the criteria. So I'll read these one by one. It speaks firstly to take into account the history, diversity, and cohesiveness of the constituency or ward. B. Have regard to the population density, trends, and projections. Let me read them out and I'll speak to a few where necessary. C. Ensure the number of inhabitants in each constituency or ward is reasonable, taking into account the means of communication and geographical features. Then the next is ensure that constituencies and wards are wholly within districts and seek to achieve an approximate equality of constituency and ward population subject to the need to ensure adequate representation for urban and sparsely populated areas. So to just speak to a few of these factors is that I think the Constitution recognizes that the settlement will differ urban and rural. So the last criteria there speaks to the fact that there has to be approximate equality. We cannot achieve total equality by way of saying the population of Zambia is 20 million, let's divide by so many, whether it's 100 constituency, all right, each constituency should have 200,000 people. That's not possible because of the distribution of the population. In urban areas we have concentrated, and then in the rural especially population distribution. Now, the other aspect is the D there, the fact that these constituencies have to sit within a district. So, whereas the district may not have the numbers that would be as close as possible to the average, but just for the purpose that is a district, it has to have the constituency. I think we did have this experience in 2016 when 6 districts were established out of a single constituency district, and therefore an amendment had to be done to Article 68 to increase from 150 to 156. Yeah, so these are the factors that the Commission does use during the receipt, the phase 1, the analysis and receipt of the submissions for purposes of recommending to government, and also at phase 3 for purposes of the implementation once the article has been amended, or one of the Constitution has been amended. So in terms of, to directly speak to the question around publication of the report. I think what we have sitting in the law is that the Commission shall publish in the Government Gazette the constituencies that will be implemented upon amendment of the Constitution. What we is done at phase 1 is for purposes of collecting information for the Commission to put together a recommendation that would inform the amendment of Article 68, which is what happened in 2019 and indeed even in previous times, but did not result, in the previous time did not result in an amendment, but this time around there was that positivity that the amendment will be done. At that point then, the Commission will again engage stakeholders for purposes of sharing, for purposes of determining where these 55 are. For now, the only guarantee that can be given is definitely every province will have new constituencies. So maybe a little bit of history there that this is how Parliament has sat since independence. We are from 75 in 1964 to 125. Then 1991 to 150, so we have been sitting at 150 for a long time until 2016, which was really for as a result of establishment of new districts. So hence the proposal now to go to 211 by adding 55 new ones. I think I will end here. As I earlier indicated, I think the aspect of mixed member proportion has been adequately addressed. So the rest I'm sure can be covered during question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another big hand for the panel. So we reached the stage where we open up for plenary questions. Starting from all the presentations, you realize that Minister of Justice is still there in case there are any other questions that relate to the electoral process. As well as Honorable there. Where is the other mic? The other mic? Who is managing the other mic? Okay. Any other hands? These are so clear. I thought this is very long question that wants to start. So Honorable Hamata here, please. We also have yours truly there. Honorable Mute.
Thank you so much. I acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Honorable members, and the panel. My first question goes to the Minister of Justice. The amendment of Article 57, which actually indicates that once an independent member dies, there shall be a by-election. It also includes the councillors, the council chairperson or mayor, including the MOP independent, which is very clear. But if you go to Article 72, where we talk of the sponsoring party to replace a member of parliament who dies, I've seen that it does not include the councillor, the council chairman, or mayor. Maybe we will need clarification if I've not missed that. Then secondly, I would like to get clarification what will happen after the nomination and the member resigns. My understanding, of course, is that let's say after the nomination, maybe 2 days or so after the election, then a member resigns. My understanding that by that time, you may have the ballot paper ready. Now, in my view, if this person who resigns and the information is still sitting on the ballot papers, is it not likely to increase the spoiled ballots? Or how do you intend to handle this issue? Those are my two questions that need clarity. Thank you.
Is it good morning or good afternoon? All protocols observed. My first observation is on the limitation of constituencies. Under A, the factors that are to be considered, there's history there. So I would want to understand what is meant by saying history or stating history. Because I'm saying so in line with Kalabo district. Kalabo district, when we were born there as children, we found it had 4. By then, Kalabo district included Skongo, which is now a standalone district. So, as we are standing, as we are living now, Kalabo district has only 2. But there were 4. One was lost. A constituency was lost. The first government of this country created the 4. Somewhere along the way, people did not appreciate that 4. This is under history. They decided to phase out 1. I'm sure Electoral Commission is aware of this. So I would want the Commission to highlight how 1 was lost, whilst considering history as a factor which helps the Commission to come up with a constituency. Secondly, my good people who know how to read, they have indicated to me, because I heard when they were talking of 2 months before the nomination date, that this person who wants to contest as an independent must or should not have been in a political party. If so, then 2 months before should have resigned. Now my question is there any regulation, is there a statute in this country which is governing political parties such that it gives people the chance to be able to contest as independent? If there is none, then here there is some tramp on our rights as citizens. A person should resign, but if there is no law that is governing political parties such that they hold their elections to make sure they finalize, to allow these human beings to contest, then there's a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Because we'll close after this and go into lunch. Okay. I think the questions bordered more on the Electoral Commission of Zambia, readiness, and the history. We also have something for Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Program Director. Allow me to probably also begin by speaking to a question that had come earlier in the earlier session to do with the, sorry, I forget the article, I think it should be Article 52(6) around the 30 days, whether it was sufficient. Just to clarify that the framing there of Article 52 is such that in the event of a death of a candidate, the Commission is required to hold fresh nominations. The framing does not give the period within which to hold those fresh nominations. That 30 days is tied to the time the election ought to be held after those nominations. I hope that clarifies. So a candidate dies, the Electoral Commission should hold fresh nominations, must hold fresh nominations. After those fresh nominations are held, within 30 days that election must take place. So there's a little bit of room there probably to address the sensitivities that had been highlighted around mourning period and so forth before the nominations are held. Yeah, so I thought I could clarify that. Now, in terms of where a member resigns and their information remains on the ballot, yes, I think from the framing of the law, the implication or the meaning therefore is that that particular person or candidate remains a validly nominated candidate. So votes cast on that from a legal point of view will not be spoiled votes. It will be votes for that candidate. Of course, for practical purposes, it will be spoiled because the person has probably not campaigned and gone on to the public that I'm no longer interested. But from a legal point of view, we cannot count those as spoiled because they have been cast against a candidate that was validly nominated. In terms of history, I will begin by admitting that probably we need to get a bit more details on Kalawa and address the issue specifically, but in general to indicate that I think practice has shown that the delimitation processes have sought not to take away but to add. So in that particular case, for now, subject to correction, would be establishment of new districts out of the original Kalawa district that then resulted in that constituency moving to the new district, not necessarily that the boundaries of Kalawa have remained the same since independence, but the number of constituencies have reduced. That would be very unlikely, but with that proviso that we can come back with more detail in that respect.
Okay. Thank you for that guidance. Okay, I'm going to calm down. The problem is, as I add energy, yes. So, initially, from 1964, that's what we know, Karawa had 4. We had Skongo constituency, we had Yuba constituency, we had Kalabo constituency, and we had Sihole constituency. Those 4. That's what made the Kalabo district. We leave it alone. Somewhere along the line, a natural cause happened. The MP, the former late MP for Sihole passed on. And that's why I blame all the elderly people in Kalabo, because they allowed that to pass an election. There was no by-election to replace. And that's how Sihole faced to join Karabu. You see that? Try to look in your books, you will find it. So that's why I was relating history to one of the factors. So the question now is, if that constituency phased out, what is it now? With the history,
Thank you. I did indicate in my response that it had a proviso around the details. I think I did allude to the case of Skongo, which he also mentioned that it's now a new district and therefore it went. But in terms of Sihole, that we would have to check our details and come back. I think in terms of a clarification around, not necessarily speaking to the political parties bill which Minister of Justice would speak to, but in terms of the proviso that, the provision that a person ought to, if a person who is a member of a political party would like to stand as an independent, then they must resign 2 months before nominations. It's because you will note that for a general election, for example, the nominations are held over 2 months because of the other attendant legal provisions in terms of petitions and determinations of those. So nominations are held over 2 months from the general election. So the constitution as it sits now is merely academic because you are resigning 2 months before an election when the nominations have already taken place. So the idea is to clarify so that then the resignations are before the date of nomination, so that then the person can have the opportunity to stand as an independent member of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. There was also a question from Honorable Hamate as to whether we have any clause in this text of the amended bill to deal with mayors and council chairperson. Yes, we have. If you have the copy of this bill, it's on page 10, clause 158. It does provide for a vacancy in the office of mayor, council chairperson, or councillor. Then Article 52 and Article 57 respectively cover for independent and also the office of the member of parliament. So they have been adequately provided for. There was also a question from Honorable Mewto as to whether we have any regulations which govern political parties in Zambia. Honorable Mewto, we don't have a piece of legislation currently providing for regulation of political parties. Remember, there was an attempt, is it in 2019, where we came up with the political parties bill, which among other provisions was providing for funding of political parties that have seats in the National Assembly. It was also providing for political parties to have a national character, where indeed it requires each political party at least to have 100 or so supporters in each province. But that bill was shot down and it has never seen the light of day since then. So we don't specifically have legislation to deal with political parties in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I only see one hand. I know I said I was going to close, and since Honorable Munganda has not spoken, I'll allow him to speak and then we'll close with him. I don't see any other hand.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mine, I'll begin with a comment. I think the manner in which we are handling these amendments is not very helpful, because for the first time I'm seeing ruling party member of parliament who also appear to have not caucused, and we are talking about maybe less than 2 weeks of this bill coming to parliament. Believe you me, there is this hostility towards this amendment. So what we expected is that the ruling party members should have caucused, they should have been the champions of these amendments. But in most cases, clearly they appear to be as blank as Honorable Member of Parliament for Chama South, which should never be the case. I think, colleagues, we can handle this issue in a better way. That is my first submission. Don't take it lightly. There are these members who are supporting you. The church is already camping in their constituencies to say, should they support these amendments? In short, you are technically knocking yourselves or ourselves out of political scene, and we will not allow that, because once we join politics, I think even the most unpopular candidate will say, I'm still popular. I think that's what we politicians. So I want to request first, after I said it will be a comment, let us do it in a better way. Most of these amendments, we should not come and argue on the floor of the House, because clearly, from the debate that I'm getting from the ruling party members, you have not caucused. I want to urge you to go and caucus, have one position as you've brought us together. Let us do it better way. Then coming to, because we are balancing committees and other things, I know you might have already discussed it. The lion in the house is curing of by-elections to do with members of parliament. I want to ask ECZ. I know we have ECZ here. The Constitution gives the power to citizens to elect members of parliament. Don't you think the idea of leaving a political party to choose a candidate would be in contravention of the Constitution? And the law says any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution, have you aligned the power to elect an MP within the Constitution to ensure that it again gives I would call a sub-powers to the political party? Do you think this clause can be attended to? Because others are saying it can be anarchy, a source of anarchy. There are those of us who are objective to say we put Zambia first at the expense of the political party that we represent. Don't you think we can be limited so that they bring in someone? In other countries in South Africa, MPs have been killed at gunpoint. They will just follow you, clear you, and put in someone that they want. How safe are we? As much as we are trying to cure by-election, but don't you think it can even create more problems? How do you think we can handle that one? I think these are the two issues I had. First, you as a ruling party, caucus.
It's enough.
I submit.
We have heard. Thank you very much. I think before the resource persons come in, the purpose of this interaction was not to lobby for or against the amendment. The purpose was to enhance the understanding of the process. For example, if we ask some members of parliament, what do you understand by proportional representation? Do you know what the system involves? Can you know can you compare proportional representation to mixed member elections or to quota system? We just wanted to enhance your knowledge so that when you interrogate the bill, especially for those people that are going to be in the select committee, you need to understand, because these questions are going to be thrown to you as honorable members. So if you don't have the knowledge of what the system involves, you will not be able to answer those questions. So this is capacity building rather than to lobby for you to support or not to support. That is not our job. That's not what we are doing right now. And also some members came late. So some of the issues that are being raised, they have already been addressed. So I'm a bit disappointed actually to see that members of parliament are not, most of them are not here. Because if we throw, even if we had we are going to have an exam here or a test, to say, can you write the difference between proportional representation and the mixed member, you get 0%. This is capacity building. Most people also have not read the bill. This has helped you to understand the bill also. After that, you can make your own decision to support or not to support.
Thank you very much. On that note, if we go to the program, I saw the other questions that were raised relate to the electoral process. There will be a time for Minister of Justice and Electoral Commission to respond to that. I would like to thank the panel. Help me thank the panel, this rich panel. I wish we could have them for 3 days. There's so much information, all of them kept saying. But ICTs, I will circulate all the presentations through our various platforms. You can step down. You're free to step down. So if you look at the program, we go to lunch. But before lunch, there will be a photo session just outside. Immediately you reach, you just step out, you'll be able to see the chairs. And after that, Mama has given us lunch. So feel free, we'll go up, people will be able to ask.
With us on Parliament Television and Radio, where we've been bringing live to you the consultative workshop for parliamentarians on the 2025 constitutional reform process. We've just come to the end of the second session of presentations, which had a powerful team of experts, which included 2 international resource persons, that's Dr. Victor Shale and Mr. Shaunini Kurasha. We also had Mr. Brown Kasalo, who is the Chief Electoral Officer. Mainly in the panel discussion, in their presentations, they focused on the electoral system in the region, that's the SADC region, and then we had Mr. Brown Kasalo at hand as the Chief Electoral Officer from the Electoral Commission of Zambia, who also touched mainly on the Zambian system. The members of parliament that have been part of this session were allowed to interact with the panel in terms of asking questions where they were not clear. This session started earlier on in the morning, and it was officially opened by Honorable Madam Speaker, and she did state that this consultative meeting was very important, being that the constitutional reform process is a very important aspect, and it plays a crucial role in Zambia's parliament. She also highlighted the importance of a credible, inclusive, and participatory process for crafting or amending the Constitution. Some of the key points that came from Madam Speaker's speech are the constitutional history and principles, understanding Zambia's constitutional history and principles, which she did say was essential for effective legislative oversight and meaningful stakeholder engagement. Madam Speaker also touched on the proposed amendments. She did state that the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Act aimed to refine the supreme law, aligning it with national values and principles. And the workshop objectives were focused on enhancing knowledge of Zambia's constitutional history, deepening understanding of the legal framework, and providing technical insight in non-contentious amendments. Basically, that's what we've had here. But continue watching Parliament Television, the only station that brings Parliament closer to you. From me, Tazapiri, and the entire production crew, we wish you a pleasant afternoon.